And with that, welcome inside the Monday press conference edition of Big Ten Live. I'm your host, Rick Pizzo. It's been a long summer to wait, but we are now just 3 days away from the official start of the Big Ten football season. Minnesota and Nebraska kick things off on Thursday night in a Fox National broadcast, and then a full complement of Big Ten games coming up during week one on both Saturday and Sunday, plus a Friday night game for Michigan State. In advance of all those week one matchups, it's time for us to hear from some coaches whose teams will toe the line for the first time this season, and in a few cases, for the first time under new regimes. Mel Tucker and Michigan State, as I mentioned, play on Friday night. We'll hear from the Spartan head man. Ryan Walters and Luke Fickell set to make their Big Ten head coaching debuts. We'll head to both West Lafayette and Madison. Tom Allen and the Hoosiers take on a conference foe in Ohio State. Bret Bielema looks to get to Indy in year 3 of his reign down in Champaign. So much to discuss with David Braun and Northwestern. We'll also hear from Matt Rhule and PJ Fleck, who already hosted their press conferences because of the early start. But we start today with Wisconsin. They are so excited in Madison. It is truly a new era. Should see a new look as well, especially offensively, with Luke Fickell as the new head coach in Madison. So without further ado, let's head to Madtown and hear what Coach Fickell has to say about his team and their week one opposition.
Obviously, this is an exciting time for all, not just myself. I think all of our guys, you guys know. I mean, game one is so unique in college football with the time that you spend, preparing for one game and never having a scrimmage of any sorts or anything where you do anything with anybody else. So week one is always incredibly intriguing. I think obviously in year one, it's even more so, right? For me, for all of our players. I kind of said this morning, it's almost like, Christmas morning, you're preparing for a lot of things. There's a lot of anxieties. You're excited about it, but yet there's a lot of things that you just don't know from each other. So for all of us involved, it's an exciting time. I'm kind of excited too to actually get to Saturday. We're not ready not saying we're trying to push the whole week by, but just to feel the buzz, to be in the stadium, to all the things that you think you remember from the times of playing here until the first time of really playing here and recognizing some of those things. I know for me, that's one of those things that's on my list. I won't take much time to probably look around and enjoy it by any means, but the excitement, the buzz, the feeling, curious to see how our students show up. If we can try to find a way, I heard, to get them in a little bit earlier and start this thing off the right way. It is a 2:30 kick, so it shouldn't be that early for them. So hoping that maybe there's some newness to getting some things maybe adjusted up a little bit. That's a suggestion from our players. But I think all in all, it's just that ability to really be excited about it. And then in my mind, for you guys, what does Saturday look like? Again, for us, it's about being able to play clean. In week one, that's the things you kind of study, right? The ability to play clean, those pre- and post-snap situations, to take care of the football offensively and defensively if you have an opportunity to have it, and then your ability to tackle with things that you don't get a chance to do nearly as much in all of fall camp, never having a scrimmage of any sorts in college football. That first week, those are the things that kind of will leave me in particular laying awake a little bit on Friday night. Just that picture of being clean, that picture of taking care of the football, that picture of tackling really well in week one. But we've got some work to do, but we're excited about getting to Saturday.
Luke, you mentioned the buzz. I'm just curious. You had a season opener as an interim head coach at Ohio State, then you had the season opener as the Cincinnati head coach. Was your feeling at Cincinnati different than it was at Ohio State, and do you anticipate this will be different? You're older now.
Yeah, I would definitely think it's going to be different. In the first one, I couldn't tell you 1 second about what it was like. I mean, they're all whirlwinds, but it was, who knows? Couldn't even tell you we played. I can tell you a little bit about the Cincinnati one. It wasn't exciting, and I don't mean that it wasn't. There weren't many people in the crowd. I know we played Austin Peay. We really did not play very well, and some way we came out with a victory. So that little anxiety of remembering what week one looked like at Cincinnati will keep me up a little bit. But again, I think there's a lot of things that through the past and experiences that I've learned from. But week one is always a unique situation in college football, and obviously in year one in particular, so many things you're curious about yourself, let alone what you're going to see across the way, meaning a new offense, a new offensive coordinator with a lot of new coaches. There's a lot of unknowns.
Luke, going back to that first year at Cincinnati, it may not have gone the way that you wanted, but it also obviously laid the foundation for the future. I imagine you've been asked something along these lines these last 8 months, but what does success to you look like in year one at Wisconsin? How would you define that?
Playing our best ball at the end of the year. I know that's pretty vague, and that's a way of not answering the question in a lot of ways, but it is. If we're consistent, if we continue to grow, and we're playing our best ball at the end of the year, I think we'll have everything in front of us. We'll have an opportunity in those last 3 or 4 weeks to put ourselves in a chance to play for a championship, and that's what it comes down to. But if we don't grow, we know where you are in week 1 and where you are in week 8. If we're in any similar areas in week 1 to week 8, then we won't be playing our best ball at the end of the year. And if you're not, it's really hard to be successful and look at a season as being successful. So does that mean you kind of rub off and don't worry as much about the first 3 or 4 games? No, that's not the case. But we know that there's a progression to this. There's a process to it. And I don't want our guys, just like our coaches, to feel like this week 1 is when you got to win it. No, there's a process to doing the things we need to do, to getting better, to figuring out what it is that we have and still evolving what we've got. So big for me is this how we do things together. That's what I've always looked back at Wisconsin and recognized that whenever I played them, whether as a player or preparing for them as a coach, you knew that what you were going to get was one. And to me, more than anything, with newness, everybody's got their own personal goals. But how do we do things together? Do we have a complementary, offense and defense and special teams, and ability for us to keep that locker room really strong and do everything together?
I know when you first got the job, the first few months, you talked a lot about saying you didn't want to build a program primarily through the transfer portal, and that maybe after this year, it would just be like maybe 3-4 transfers per year. I'm just wondering, with the amount of transfers you've been able to integrate into the roster this year, have you revised your opinion on that at all, or what is your plan for the transfer portal in future years? No,
our plan won't change. I say it won't change. It won't change until all of a sudden we decide maybe this isn't the route we need to go. But for us and what we want to do to sustain it and to grow it, I think you've got to have guys for 3, 4, and 5 years. And I think as we look at the players we're going to recruit, and I say that from within the state as much as anything, you're going to get guys that in year 1 and 2 are going to look a lot different than they are in year 3, 4, and 5. And to me, that's where we've got to still make our hay, and we've got to believe that. So, that's why continuity and things are really important to me. And I don't just mean that in players. It's also in coaches. It's also in your strength program. And if that's your philosophy, then why would you be any different in how you want to recruit? So obviously, things can adjust and adapt, but I'd be disappointed if we weren't 85, 90% taking guys out of high school, having them for 3, 4, and 5 years based on if they have an opportunity to go play at the next level, and then sprinkle in the ability to find some, I'm not saying difference makers, but guys that can fill holes and gaps and things you need based on how years go.
Luke, when you're installing new schemes like this team is, and particularly on offense, how quickly can you expect this new offense to start? How quickly can it all come together?
We'll see. I think it has a lot to do with leadership. It starts with not just with Coach Longo, but that whole entire offensive staff. Their ability to make sure their guys understand all things that could and can happen within a game. So it's hard to pinpoint what exactly the same thing. What is success in week 1 or week 2 or week 3 or as an offense, and it's an evolution. But I think that's why for me it's about the ability to go out there in week 1 in particular and play clean. You don't have a whole lot of ideas what exactly you're going to see, right? There's new people in college football. There's no scrimmages. I think we got a better idea going into the game what we'll see defensively, maybe more than offensively. The head coach is a defensive guy. They've got some new people on the defensive side, Mike Caputo being one of them. But in general, I think you got a better idea. So I think it gives our offense a chance to at least have their preparation to be a little bit higher, and the adjust on the fly like you might have to do defensively might not be as great. But But again, there's no definition of what it looks like, right? If we play clean, if we play fast, and people would say, what do you mean play fast? Like no huddle? No, play fast, meaning our guys look fast, regardless of what they run the 40-yard dash in. When you know what and why you're doing things, you play a lot faster, you look a lot faster. And to me, that's the key. It's not just how many yards and how many points. Ultimately, it's about winning. But what do we look like? How do we do things? And the discipline and be able to play clean.
Luke, a couple days ago, the Big Ten announced that there would be an injury report this year. I'm just curious, how heavily were the coaches involved in that discussion process, and does it make a difference to you? Are there pluses, minuses to this? What are your thoughts?
I think most of the guys in the Big Ten like to give their opinion. As for me, I just kind of keep it to myself. I'm year one. There's a lot of things I got to do before anybody probably wants to hear my opinion. But I think it's a good thing, to be honest with you. It takes the ownership off of some of the things that are going on out there, whether our kids or our coaches or what's coming out of your camp going into game week. I'm not oblivious to understanding what's going on in college football in particular, with gambling and things like that. So I think in a lot of ways it just kind of takes that out of the picture. Some people are worried about guys not telling the truth and who's available. We only have to do it 2 hours before. I don't think it's a big deal. I actually think we're better off making sure that we can eliminate any of those issues that could come up within our program.
Coach, this is obviously your first time coaching with the new staff. Some guys that you worked with before, but some new guys as well. How do you try to prepare, trying to coach a game? Obviously, you guys have been using the headphones in practice and things like that, but how do you, going into the first game, prepare for that new experience?
There's some things you can't prepare for. I mean, just the nature of, how everybody is on game day. There's some I'm curious about. That's the great thing of, being with a bunch of the guys. If coached with them, been in those situations, that you got a better idea of how they are on game day. But there's no really preparation. We have a mock game on Friday. We had some big scrimmages where it's very competitive. You had a spring game where you try to make it as competitive as you possibly can. But it's different. And I think that, you got an idea and you go into this and you got a plan. We've talked out a million things, and I'm sure they're sick of talking, through all the different situations and how we will handle things. But that's, I think that's the uniqueness of college football, not having any of those, so to speak, preseason games or scrimmages where you can legitimately work through some of those situations with a new staff. But so I think we're in a good place, but Saturday will tell a lot too.
Talking about game week and kind of building off that, is there anything specifically that you've integrated that is a game week preparation just leading up to Saturday?
Well, I just think everybody's schedule can be a little bit different. The schedule for whatever these guys have been used to, is going to be different. So we kind of went through that this past week. We did a mock game on Friday, which I just wanted them to do everything from how they walk into the building to the hour and a half, the 2 hours before a game. So we did literally every single thing that we would do from the time we walk in the building to the time the ball's kicked off. And that's different for them. Not saying it's better, not saying it's worse. It's just different. And there are some things we had to, kind of, revamp maybe in the ways that I've done them based on, the things that Coach Longo and the offense wanted to be able to do in pregame. So I think all that, more than anything, we just tried to get those things out of the way, because come Saturday when we walk in there at, 12:30, right, 2 hours before the game, I don't want these guys to have any questions about now where do I go for warm-up? And no, they're into the routine. They can focus on what it is that they have to do on the field. So a lot of those things, I think, hopefully we've taken some of those anxieties away from those guys to say, hey, it's about the game on Saturday. I want us to worry about nothing but the game.
People are obviously eager to see what this offense looks like in a game day situation. And now that you've had a chance to coach this team through spring and preseason camp, what would you say is your biggest question about what you want to know or learn about this group in an actual game setting?
Well, I think on both sides of the ball, I want to see how physical can we play. I think more than anything, I've kind of hammered apart at that and everything that we've done about the toughness side of things. So to me, how physical can we play? And that's not just up front. It always starts up front, but I think on the edges and on the perimeter as well. How clean can we play? I mean, it's something new and it's something different. And we've had a lot of opportunities. We had 22 practices already, or 23, and we've had 15 spring practices. So they've been in these situations, but they also haven't been in them in front of 84,000 and on national televisions and things like that. So things are a little bit different. But I think for me, that's why it's so key on, hey, we've got to be in week one. We've got to play clean. We've got to play fast. And if that means you're really simple in what it is that you're doing and you don't have everything at your that's fine. I don't want to get into us having too much and not allowing our guys to be confident in the things that they're doing and play really aggressive and really fast. And that's not saying, well, you're taking somebody lightly or not doing everything that you would do. No, that's not that. I just mean in general, my challenge to coaches each and every week, no matter what the game is, I don't want too much. It still comes down to who's going to play the fastest, who's going to play the hardest, and who's going to be the most aggressive. Some would say make less mistakes. I don't like to say that. I want to think about the positives, but the ability to be aggressive but be confident in what you're doing. So I think there's a balance there, but in week one in particular, I think that I want our guys to be as simple as we possibly can.
We're in this really unique era right now of 6-year seniors. So with that backdrop, how would you assess Tanner Mordecai's decision-making, specifically if there's been any evolution from spring until now for Tanner?
Well, we'll find out on Saturday. I think that he has been through a lot of things. He has recognized, he has seen. If there was one thing that, we don't want to, hinder a guy, like he is an aggressive player. And I think in the spring, I'm saying in that one day in particular, it was noticeable that maybe he was over-aggressive and, he threw a couple picks. There's an opportunity that we kind of say, look, we don't want you to play passive. I don't care if you're a quarterback. I don't care if you're the center. I don't care if you're whoever it is. But there's also a way of playing clean. And I think in week one, it's on us every bit as much as it is on him to put him in those situations where, hey, we can be aggressive, but we can do it in a smart way. So sometimes I don't look just at the player as to how do we keep him from making some of those decisions. It's how do we put him in, into the position where we're not going to have to make some of those decisions. And what does that mean? That you can't guarantee, but stay out of the third and long situations where, those aren't the greatest situations offensively. And then make sure that we understand the things that we're doing, because we're going to get some new things, right? It's week one. There's going to be something across the ball offensively and defensively that we have not prepared for. And your ability to be able to handle that is going to really kind of tell us where we are in a lot of things we're doing.
Luke, Phil Longo hosts a camp clinic every offseason. Maybe that's not the right word for it, but he gets a bunch of coaches together. I believe you've participated in it. Can you kind of give the Cliff's Note version of just what?
It's a lot of football for a long period. So 7 days, they go breakfast, lunch, and dinner with, I'd say a script, but a schedule of things. They take some breaks in there to eat and maybe have a couple beverages and a cigar at night. But it's just a lot of football. For me, I couldn't. I was like a 2-day guy. I started off maybe 2.5 days and then kind of whittled it down to about a day and a half. But he's continued to do it ever since I've known him. I did not make it this year, unfortunately. With some of the things that were going on here, it was at a time where I couldn't get away, which was disappointing. But I just think that shows you, I say Phil in particular because he kind of runs it and kind of hosts it, his willingness to continue to learn and to grow. And even since the time I started it, where it was just offensive guys, just kind of the air raid background, in the 5 or 6 years I've been around, it is completely morphed into a lot more kind of both offensively and a few defensive guys, and a lot of guys, whether they're from the NFL or college, but are not just tied to the tree. And I think it's a great indication of we in particular, recognize the evolution of college football. And if you're not evolving and you're not growing what it is that you're doing, then you're going to wake up and be completely behind in all things that are going on. So I think that's why it's interesting to see as we continue to grow. We have a foundation both offensively and defensively of what we do, but as we grow through the season, we see who we really become. And that's what I talk about playing your best ball at the end of the year. It's recognizing even during a year you're evolving what it is that you're doing and your guys can handle.
Luke, do you have any idea how long Isaiah Mullins might be out? And also, Marty Stry being named a captain, it seemed like it was a pretty big deal in that room. What stands out about him?
So Isaiah, I don't know. He had a scope maybe 2 weeks ago or so. Not to that point where we would know if he's 2 weeks away or 3 weeks away. We'll have to see. So I think we're still a week or so away from figuring out what we can project on that. And I would say Marty's just been a pillar in everything that we've done, right? I mean, there's been so much change in the last 9 months. Guys have handled it incredibly well, but even for us as coaches, he's been a guy that you could always count on, right? I mean, when things are different and things are, new, he was a guy that you could look at and always get the reassurance, right? And you know that when you've got guys like that, then you know that things inside your locker room are continuing to grow. And I think that's really big. That's really big. It's big in the new year. It's big in, I say a new season, but a new team in a lot of ways too. And so where Marty's role might not be as much, defensively, it'll be maybe greater, with the special teams. His role within that locker room, I think, has really shown because he was elected by his peers and his players and the guys around him, both offensively and defensively, as a guy that they look up to and they trust in everything that they do.
Time for 2 more, Jake.
Luke, has there been any update with Michael Mack and his waiver status and if he'll be available for this season?
We don't know yet. Kind of waiting on a little bit of a response, and hopefully we'll at least get a response here really quick. I don't know that the military does anything, and can't push or drive them to get too quick of a response, and then it goes to the NCAA with some of the stuff. So we're not sure just yet.
Just wondering, it's kind of a big picture thing. With your Big Ten background, this league's kind of had a reputation for smash mouth football over the years. Always teams ranking near the top of the nation in defense, not necessarily in offense. With some of the coordinators who've arrived, your Bill included, and the Pac-12 teams coming aboard next year, do you sense that reputation might change, the style of the play might shift a little bit, or do you think it's always going to be, with the climate of the teams here, a defense-first conference?
I think the whole landscape of college football is continuing to evolve, right? I mean, but I do think there is a nature of playing really sound in the Big Ten. I think there's a nature of playing really physical in the Big Ten. Not that they don't do it in other conferences. So if that means that, maybe there's better defenses or less, offensive firepower in the Big Ten, so be it. I think the addition of obviously some of the West Coast teams is going to make us all recognize that, we've got to continue to grow. And I think that's where, in some ways, I would say this. I don't like to say that offenses have grown ahead of defenses, but I think that they've done a better job offenses in college ball and of evolving and not changing the game, but making the game a little bit different. And I think defensively, in general, we just haven't been as good throughout the country of keeping up with offenses. I think defensive guys have been set in their ways a little bit, but I think what you're starting to see is an evolution and change on both sides of the ball. Will it affect the Big Ten? Yes. I don't know exactly how. And people would say, well, the weather. No, it's evolving. It's continuing to change, but I think the uniqueness of always in the Big Ten, it's about playing physical, and it's about playing sound, and if that means that there are better defenses across the board in the Big Ten, then there will always be better defenses across the board.
Thanks, Coach. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, for Luke Fickell, Santa Claus will be in Madison this weekend. He says it's almost like Christmas morning, referring to opening day, as Zach Hanley tweeted, excited? Probably an understatement for Fickell, getting ready for Saturday's opener against Buffalo. That opener is followed by a road non-conference game at Washington State. Then you finish up against Georgia Southern before getting into Big Ten play. The Big Ten conference schedule for Wisconsin and Fickell starting on the road on a Friday night. That's September 22nd against Purdue. So many looking at that October 28th game against Fickell's former team, the the Ohio State Buckeyes. Mention that the schedule for the Big Ten kicks off on Thursday night with Nebraska and Minnesota. Michigan State fans, you don't have to wait until Saturday either, because the Spartans go on Friday night against Central Michigan as Mel Tucker looks to get back to success that the Spartans had in 2021, erase all the disappointment from 2022. Speaking of the head Spartan, let's head to East Lansing. Here is MSU headman Mel Tucker.
All right. Thanks, everyone, for being here today. We're preparing to start the season at home in the woodshed in front of our fans. We had a student event last week, and the student section was packed. So we can feel the excitement and the energy on campus. I know last week the band was practicing 3 times a day. Outside my window, they're getting after it, and that's always a good sign. We've had a good camp, and we shifted our attention to CMU sometime last week. We've already had 2 practices this week on those guys. We had a Tuesday practice today, and they're very well coached. They have a good team. I went against Coach McElwain a couple times when I was in the SEC, and so we'll have to be at our best. We'll have to prepare, continue to prepare, and I know they'll be at their best. So with that, I'll open it up.
I'm just wondering if you've settled the starting quarterback competition and who you expect to be out there on Friday.
Yeah, so we'll see who runs out there first on Friday night, and then we'll go from there.
Mel, I'm wondering, with the news last week about the availability report, I guess your thoughts on that, how it differs from your time in the NFL, and if I don't know if that changes anything with you. Do you have any injuries during camp that might be season long that you would reveal?
It doesn't change anything for me right now today. It's relatively new, and so we'll follow the rules best we can. I'm sure we're gonna have to iron some things out. There's not as many categories, as I understand it, as we had in NFL, but it doesn't change anything for me at this point.
Hey, Mel, you opened up talking about some of the off-the-field things that you and the team are doing. Last week, Jacoby talked about how excited he was that he was able to go and be out in the community, and they have this thing where they talk about knowing your roommates. How important are these off-the-field things as it leads to starting the season and being a part of the season?
Well, it's important. I mean, it's the team, we have to be connected, and it's not just, while they're at practice or in the meeting rooms. It's on campus and outside of football as well, and it's similar to a family, and we need to have a tight knit team and really good chemistry, and the guys that love and care about each other, and so it's very important. Yeah. Thanks.
Realizing you aren't going to tell us who the starting quarterback is, can you, without naming names, can you tell us if there's any separation, or do you still need to see more this week before you make that
What type of separation are you talking
between
about?
one quarterback and the others?
We'll just have to find out on Friday.
Mel, if the offense, defense, and special teams are all better, and it looks like they could be, what about the head coach? How are you better than you were a year ago, and how'd you go about that evaluation and improvement?
Yeah, so, we'll see if we're better, and we'll see if I'm better. How do I evaluate if I'm better? It's really personal and internal. But, we'll see how the season goes, and we'll add it up at the end.
Does it come down to wins and losses?
With me?
Yeah.
In some regards it does, some regards it doesn't.
Not a quarterback question, but special teams.
You got a kicker, punter?
Exactly, that's what I'm asking. Punter, kicker.
I don't talk about kickers and punters. I just talked to Ross Ailes about that. He says, how have you kept your sanity for 27 years? And I said, I don't talk to kickers, I don't talk to the punters. That's how.
Is there anybody in both those positions that have separated themselves to the point where you think one's better than the other, or you see playing multiple guys at each spot?
The competition at quarterback, the punter, kicker has been very strong throughout camp, and so we feel good about all the guys that have been competing, and I feel like all those guys can get the job done for us.
As in your tenure here, you have yet to face Central Michigan. The last time Michigan State played each other, or, guys played each other 2018. What do you think about having in-state schools to open up with like this for a season opener? And then have you done anything differently to prep for Central Michigan, maybe with the guys, than, I don't know, anything outside the box?
Well, we showed the players, I think maybe the last time that Central came here, and really tight game. We showed them the highlights and we showed them the commentary that the Big Ten Network had after the game. Just make sure that everyone understands the challenge at hand. I think it's good to be able to play in-state schools. It's important to us. It's important to them. It's good for our state, and it's going to be a dogfight. It's going to be a challenge. There's no doubt about it. Always has been.
Well, you practiced already this morning, correct?
Yep.
Do you sense this week, now that you're out of camp and you're preparing for an opponent, there's any extra energy because now they're in a game week environment?
I feel relentless focus with our coaches and with the players. We know what we have to do. We know what's at stake, and we've worked and prepared extremely hard this entire out of season and during camp. And so, we have a process, and it's it's one day at a time. And we had a solid day today. I've got to watch the film to really see how good it was or not, and then we'll move on to the next day.
Kind of bouncing off that, Coach, how much more emphasis is there on detail because it is game week, maybe compared to camp?
Details every day. It's all about the detail. I mean, it's the little things, and that are going to make the difference. It's going to be technique and fundamentals, pad level, hand placement, footwork, communication, leverage, effort, hitting, adjustments, demeanor, all those things, they all add up. And so that's our focus, each and every day, attention to detail. It doesn't just start on game week.
Last week and the week before, maybe it was the week before, you expressed concern, well, not concern, but questioning where the run game is. From an offensive line standpoint, how deep do you feel you can go, and how important is this week in terms of the future of the season of trying to get more depth and get those guys live bullets to see where they're at?
We're deeper than we were to start the season a year ago, and I feel better about our run game than I felt a couple weeks ago.
Miller here. I know you don't talk specific injuries and all that, but a couple weeks ago you did talk about the importance of getting guys to the game, and also before that how you felt this team is deeper. Where do you think you guys are now in terms of getting guys to the game? Do you feel confident you're in a good spot with the opener coming up, or is that still an issue, you think?
We came out of practice fairly well today. We had a full padded practice, and we did a significant amount of hitting today, and talking to Rod, after our head trainer after practice, seems like we had a couple bumps and bruises, but we should be. We came out today okay, and we have some guys that have been nicked up that are getting back for the game, and so we're in a better spot overall than we were a year ago going into the first game.
Mel, you got some intriguing true freshmen. I was wondering if any of these first-year guys you expect to game one be part of the mix, and maybe who you think is going to fill out some of those roles.
Some of the freshmen.
Yeah, the first year.
The true guys, true freshmen. Yeah, we'll have to see which guys show up. It'd be I would look to see which freshmen show up on special teams first. And I don't really have any specifics for you right now. We're still putting the game plan in, and we're competing to get on the field and for the the hotel travelers and things like that. So guys are still working hard, but we do have some freshmen that maybe it'll help us this year. So we'll have to see.
Hey Mel, I got a question for you. I want to clarify real quick first, if I could, though, with the report. Can you tell us anything about the categories and everything? I didn't see anything about that. I don't think they said that in the press release.
I can't tell you really anything right now, but it's nothing that's super intriguing. From what I got from the Big Ten conference call last week with the coaches and the commissioner and the staff, is I don't think it's anything that's going to be newsworthy.
Okay. So coming out of camp, that's one mode. This is a different mode this week. I'm just wondering, what's the thing that you're most comfortable about with this team or most confident in? And there's what is something that you just can't learn about a team maybe in camp until you face another team that you're really interested to see on Friday?
Yeah, I'm not sure if I'm really comfortable about anything. I am confident in our coaching staff and our preparation, and the approach that our players have taken is very, very focused. And we have better team chemistry, and I think our focus is where it needs to be at this point, in the week. And, we'll have to see. I'm encouraged by what I've seen, this out of season and during camp and from our players and our coaching staff, support staff. And so, it's really one day at a time for us right now. It's a new season, and we're treating it that way.
Anything you specifically want to see on Friday, though, that you just can't get out of a camp setting?
Yeah, it's hard to simulate a game. We do the best we can in scrimmages, but there's nothing like, going in the woodshed in front of 75,000 people on TV. You really can't simulate that, and so we'll have to see how our guys react, and I'm interested and looking forward to seeing how they perform on Friday.
Hey Mel, you were quoted in the Lansing State Journal over the weekend asking for more NIL from MSU fans. What specifically are you looking for in that regard?
Yeah, it's game week right now, and that's not my focus right now. I was asked some questions specifically about that. And so, I talked about the realities of, major college football right now, but today that's absolutely not my focus.
I don't know how much you personalize this because you have a large coaching staff and over 100 players, but how much pressure do you feel to get this thing back on track to where you want it and where it was 2 years ago?
How much pressure do I feel? I put a tremendous amount of pressure on myself all the time. So the pressure I feel is the same pressure I feel, every day and for the last 27 years is, to coach hard and get the people that are around me to coach hard and play hard. And that's it. No one can put more pressure on me than I put on myself. No one. There's no situation possible. And so, I've coached at the highest level. The smallest place I've coached was Miami of Ohio for 1 year in '99, and I've never been anywhere where you weren't expected to win games. And so, but I expect to win, and that's what we're doing here. And so, it's not even about the pressure for me. It just comes with the deal, But I can't even. Pressure is not even the word. Quite frankly, I'm not sure what the word is, but it's not pressure that I feel,
You mentioned that you feel better about the run game than you did a few weeks ago.
Mm-hmm.
Why?
Well, I feel like the receivers have gotten better in blocking, digging out the safeties and blocking the corners, and our tight ends seem more coordinated. Got better pad level, more drive. We have more guys coming to the party in terms of running the ball in our backfield. Guys are running hard, falling forward on contact, running through the smoke, stepping through the trash, things like that in the offense line. Seems to be, in sync and physical. Coach Cap had him in the shoots today, which was good. And so I expect to see really good pad level. We have to be able to run the ball. We have to be able to stop the run. That's where everything starts for us.
And I just have one quick follow-up with the two transfers in Jaron Mangum and then, of course, Nathan Carter. Are you starting to see any separation between those two?
They're different players, and so we're going to need them both. We like to play, 3 guys, maybe 4 if we can, to keep those guys fresh. That's a tough position. They take a lot of hits, and it's really physical. And so we need as many guys as we can to be prepared to go in there and play winning football. We'll see who shows up and who gets the carries and the touches and the targets.
Central, I believe, brings back a good chunk of their defense from a year ago, and it seems kind of hard to do at that level this era. But I'm just wondering, what do you see from those guys on that side of the ball? Where are they advanced? Where do they pose a threat and whatnot with that experience?
They're going to play really hard. They do a good job mixing the coverages and the fronts. They have they have a really good pressure package on first and second down and on third down. and they're well coached. They do a good job with disguising the guys fall to the ball. They got some active guys in the front seven that can whip guys one-on-one. That's what they've shown on tape. And so, they're just well coached and they play extremely hard and they have some good players. I mean, everybody's got good players. We know that, right? And so they're no different. They have quite a few good players. Yeah, we'll have our hands full.
Not even who would have, an edge on the other one, but when you do look at your two quarterbacks and you might say, Hauser does this well, Kim does this well, when talking about each of them separately, what would you say their strengths are individually?
Yeah, I really try to avoid the comparisons because I don't think it's really fair. Those guys are unique and they're both really good players, and we like them both. And so, I just don't think it's good to make comparisons, especially right now.
You mentioned about showing previous games against CMU to the guys. What are the challenges in facing an in-state team that isn't in your conference? And how does the coaching staff kind of get guys psyched up and prepared for that? Or does that just come natural with game one and having a long way off between games?
It's, the preparation mentally and physically is very important. And like I told the players, yesterday, I said, hey, listen, I'm not one of those guys that's going to, come in here and rant and rave and yell and scream in front of you and try to scare you to get you ready, for a team because you might take them lightly. Well, we're not good enough to take anybody lightly. We never have been. We never will be. And so it doesn't make any sense. We have to prepare the guys, and you show them, say, hey, this is what it's going to be. Their belief level is going to be super high. They're well coached. Coach McElwain, he's a coach. He's going to scheme you up now. The guy knows what he's doing, and he's proven that. They have good players. We showed them that. It's just delivery of the information to make sure that the players are informed that they're prepared. And I don't anticipate anyone, not being prepared and ready to go on Friday. That's our job, is to make sure that we're able to put our best foot forward. And so that's all part of the preparation, showing them, hey, this is what you can expect. We had Coach Novak, our head strength coach, was there, and he knows all about it. He knows how they see the game. What their mentality is towards this game. And so that's important for our guys to understand that. And also make sure the players understood what our mindset is going into the game as well. And so, like I said, it's going to be a tough battle. We're expecting it to be a 4-quarter game, and we need to play harder for longer. Thank you so much. See you next time. Go Green.
For those hoping to get some information regarding Michigan State's quarterback, you'll have to wait until Friday, according to Mel Tucker. As a matter of fact, wouldn't even share the info on who leads the competitions for the starting job at kicker or punter either. Friday night, Michigan State Central Michigan is when you will get all that information, and probably not a minute before opening kickoff. One of the youngest head coaches in the country makes his debut in West Lafayette on Saturday. Purdue set to take on Fresno State. Should be an exciting Saturday for not just Boilermaker Nation, but certainly for former Illinois DC Ryan Walters. Let's take you to West Laf. Here is Walters hosting his first official in-season press conference as head coach.
Yeah, Ryan, just sort of give us your thoughts on getting ready to coach your very first game as the man.
There's a ton of thoughts. Right now I'm just focused on the game plan and trying to help out where I can, offensively and defensively, special teams. But really just excited for our guys that have really put in the work to be able to reach this point and be ready to go play a game. I'm excited to see them play against another opponent instead of hitting each other every day in practice. I know they're excited to get out in front of the fans at Ross-Ade and showcase what we've been working on.
What do you think you learned the most about your team in camp?
I think we've established ourselves from an identity standpoint in all three phases. This team, we're going to be aggressive. We're going to, stretch the field offensively and attack defensively and be strategically aggressive in the kicking game. And I've learned that these guys love football, and so they're easy to coach. They're fun to coach because they love the game as much as, or if not more than the staff does.
A lot of talk about Hudson Card. Sort of give everybody an idea on what we're going to see on Saturday for number one.
Hopefully, he has played in practice through spring ball and through fall camp. You see a guy that's extremely accurate with the big arm that gets the ball out quickly and throws a nice catchable tight spiral. A guy that's athletic and can extend plays and make you miss on the ground. But I think what's most important and most impressive from my vantage point is just his poise. He's got a calm confidence to him, understands the scheme and can get the ball out quickly and go through his reads on time. He's a great quarterback. He's one of the best I've been around, in person, and I'm excited to see him play this fall.
Just part of the series and we're winning the game, I know, but this opener, you got 4 or 5 games in September at home, renovated roster. Just the importance of trying to get off on a good start in week 1 of the season.
Yeah, I think you obviously you want to start fast and you don't want to ease into the season. Our schedule doesn't really allow for that anyway, and we have set up summer workouts and set up the way we've practiced this fall to be able to hit the ground running. And so it's important to get off to a good start, to build confidence and build camaraderie and chemistry with a group of guys that is a veteran group, but hadn't had a whole lot of experience playing with each other.
Ryan, there's no easing into the season, and with your schedule you just mentioned, but Fresno State won, I think, their last 9 games last year. They've got an experienced quarterback. What are the challenges of, going into this and knowing we're going to be tested from the opening snap?
Yeah, I think it speaks volumes to the culture that Coach Tedford has created there and really has created his whole profession, or his whole career in his profession. To start 1-4 and to win 10 games in a conference championship and end it on a 9-game win streak tells you how tough they are, how together they are in that building, so it'll be a challenge, but it'll be a challenge every week. Anytime you put pads on and put the ball down and go kick off, anything can happen on any given Saturday, and so we got to be prepared and handle adversity when it comes, because that is guaranteed. And ultimately just to do our jobs and have faith in each other and confidence in the plan and go play.
Were you optimistic that Garrett and Gus were going to be able to play this first game? I mean, I don't see them on the depth chart, but I know you've been easing them into it.
Yeah, that was the plan from a rehab standpoint, from the start.
And then last thing, Dylan Thieneman is a freshman. Looks like he's going to start. What has he shown you that he came in here and basically made a name for himself right away?
Yeah, I mean he's earned his position on the depth chart and on the roster. He's got tremendous speed. I think he's like the second fastest kid we got on the team. And you look at him as a freshman, but he's 6 foot and some change. He's 205 pounds. He's really muscular and has done a great job with Coach Rhule and the strength staff. And he understands what we're trying to do schematically, and he's got no fear. And I think because of that, he's earned the respect of the guys in the locker room, and has really impressed the staff, and he's earned the right to be a starter.
Nick Scorton's been a guy that's kind of been a breakout guy throughout spring and fall. Just what have you seen from him, and how much he's gotten better over these last few months, and what do you expect from him during the season?
Yeah, he's explosive. He's got all the physical tools. He's big, he's strong, he's athletic. And now he's being more consistent, more detailed, more disciplined. And so we're counting on him to be a stalwart for us and be an impactful player for us this season.
Who is the fastest kid on the team?
Deion Burks.
Is it close?
Yeah, they go back and forth. That they would race all the time, in the summertime, but he's a little bit faster. He's a freak. I'm excited to watch him play this season.
About expectations and just what, you know, you only get one of these first games. So what do you think what do you want Purdue fans to be? How high do you want them to be, or how calm do you want them to be?
I don't really know what my expectations are for the fans. My only concern right now is for our players and how they prepare, how they practice, and now how they'll play. And I think the fans' reaction based on what we accomplish or what the product we put on the field will be fair. And so I'm just excited to get this first one under our belt.
How has it been as your first time as a head coach preparing for a game, as opposed to a coordinator?
Yeah, it's been different. Obviously, you're looking at different phases. You're allowing members of your staff that you've hired to do their job and interject where you see fit, and really, setting up practice and having a pulse on what the team needs to do more of or do less of, and then how you can have that balancing act of preparing, but also making sure that we're fresh going into game day. Those are all things that I'm learning and will continue to learn.
You have a lot of different receivers, different options there after the departure of Charlie Jones last season. Do you think you'll maybe look outside the receiver room for targets? You have a former receiver in the running back room. Once Gary Miller comes back, you'll have a great tight end. What do you think the dispersion there might be?
Yeah, I think we've got guys that we're really confident in. I know Graham likes to spread the ball around. You look at what he did at USC, and I think he had like 4 receivers that all went for close to 1,000 yards in one season. So I think we won't be as centric on one individual as they were here a year ago. We've got capable guys that are comfortable with the scheme, and the scheme allows for the ball to be spread around. So we'll get our playmakers the ball in space and let them go to work.
And then do you have any burning questions that you want to get answered this week?
No.
Any other questions? Go back to Sam. Have you made any decisions on who may redshirt so far?
No, not. You get 4 games to try to figure it out. And my philosophy is, the best teacher, in my opinion, is experience. And so if guys are capable of helping us out on game day, regardless of age, then they're going to play. And we're not going to waste an opportunity to get experience and help us win. So that we'll make those decisions as the season unfolds and who's available and who's ready.
You mentioned them a second ago, but just how impressed are you with some of the guys that you brought in to make up your staff?
The staff you're talking, I've really been impressed with everyone to a man. We were thorough in the process of figuring out and identifying who we wanted to bring in the building, not only from a positional expertise, but just the type of guys we wanted to bring in, the type of personalities. And so I've been really impressed with the chemistry we have in the staff, with the knowledge that they have in the staff, and with the way that they've interacted with and mentored our players.
We saw you guys come out of Tiller Tunnel the other day for the mock game. Have you visualized what it's going to look like and feel like with Ross 8 full?
Just briefly, there's so much to get done on a daily basis. There's not a whole lot of time for daydreaming, but every time I do, I do get goosebumps, and you try to put yourself in those moments so they don't surprise you. But I don't think there's going to be anything I can do from a mental standpoint to capture what that moment is going to feel like when it comes in real time.
Do you know what the official capacity is of Ross Aid? They're not saying it. Do you know the number?
I don't know the number. I think there's some people in this room that might know the number, but I do not know that number.
And why not? Does that fall outside of your realm of it doesn't really matter?
I haven't asked. I'm sure if I asked, they'd share that information.
You think you got to hook up? You think someone would?
I think so. I'm sure we'll all find out here shortly.
So no burning questions you want answered this week. Why not? I would I would think you would say something like, "Well, I'd like to see which receiver step forward," or whatever. Is that because you think you know what you have?
Yeah, I mean, I've watched every rep at practice. I watch every rep of individual drills. I think I've got a pretty good pulse on who our guys are and what our team's about. So, like, no real questions. I think I've got things that I want confirmed, but I don't think I'm trying to find anything new out. I don't think I'll get any new information. I'm just hoping that what I think is going to happen and who I think we can count on and how I think we'll play will be confirmed on Saturday.
Two more things. When you say you've watched every rep, does that mean you've had to go back and watch film of practice? And if so, how long does that take?
I mean, yeah, after every practice, I watch every rep. I always have in my career. I think that's just the way that most coaches are, to be thorough, to learn, and to be able to teach.
How long does that take if a practice is 2 hours to go back and watch that film? What's that process like?
It varies. It depends on how good a practice it was. But it takes what it takes.
And then last question, you seem off. I haven't watched you in practice or a game. None of us really have that much in games. Are you this way? You don't seem very fiery here. What are you going to be like? What are we going to see?
Yeah.
Do you know what we're going to see? Do you know?
I mean, we're not competing right now, so that's why I'm not. It's not 4th and 1 all the time. You know what I mean? But if we were playing Monopoly, I would try to kick your butt. You know what I mean? But on game days, like I do try to be calm. I think as a leader, you don't want to ride the ebbs and flows of momentum swings and adversity. I think when you're calm, it calms your team. But yeah, I'm competitive. I'll rally the troops when I need to rally the troops. I'll push them forward when I need to push them forward, and I'll hold them back when I need to hold them back. But yeah, I'm not walking around like it's game day all the time. I think I'd go crazy and be stressed out.
Just a quick follow-up to Sam's question about the true freshman. Is there any philosophical, incentive nowadays to keep those guys as engaged as possible to make sure from a player retention standpoint you have the same team from year to year?
That I can only answer for me and what I would do. I won't be playing freshmen because I want to appease them. I'm only playing guys that deserve the right to play, and that is done through competition. And we tell the guys all the time, your spot on the roster or your spot on the depth chart isn't owned; it's rented, and rent is due every day. And so the guys that compete and the guys that consistently show that we can trust them and that can make plays to win games at this level and in this conference, those guys will be on the field.
So you said you've seen every rep, you have a pulse. How would you compare some of the position groups and some of the players on this team to teams that you've coached in the past?
It's different. We're better in some areas. We're not as good in some areas, and the team as its entirety is its own team right now. I'm confident in our abilities, and I'm excited to watch these guys play. I'm excited to go compete with them on Saturdays, and I've got, like I keep saying it, but I've got all the confidence in the world in these guys because I've seen the way they work, I've seen the way they prepare, and I see the confidence that they have in each other.
Ryan, when you're evaluating your staff, how do you decide who's in the press box, and what is the importance of having the coordinators on the sideline with you?
Yeah, it's a discussion I've had with both coordinators, just to divvy up, first from a legality standpoint on who is allowed on the headset and where they're allowed to be, and then depending on what certain coaches are looking at, during the course of a game and what the coordinators need on each prospective side of the ball. That's how we've divvied up and decided who will be where.
Any more questions for Coach? All right, Coach, thank you.
Appreciate it.
Still has to coach his first game, but there's no doubt Ryan Welker has just won his first in-season press conference. Fresno State, not exactly an easy opener. As a matter of fact, Purdue's entire non-con is a bit of a grind. After the Bulldogs, you travel to Blacksburg for a road date with Virginia Tech and then back home against Syracuse. Some tough competition before Purdue even opens up its Big Ten schedule at home on Friday the 22nd against Wisconsin. Yes, 5 days until kickoff for Indiana. You know exactly where you are when you have to take on Ohio State in game one, and that's exactly what is on tap for Tom Allen and the Hoosiers. Probably an important year for Allen, not just for this season, but for the future of Indiana football. And as I mentioned, it starts against one of the teams that's considered not just the favorite in this conference, but one of the favorites to get back to the college football playoff. Also part of the non-con, a date against Louisville, team, of course, coached by former Purdue head man Jeff Braun. Then the Hoosiers wrap up non-conference on the 23rd of September. Don't get into conference play because of this early date against Ohio State until September 30th. They take a road trip to Maryland. All the focus right now on the Scarlet and Gray for the Cream and Crimson. As we head to Bloomington, here is IU head coach Tom Allen.
All right, good afternoon. Excited to get the 2023 season started here. Got a great opportunity for our program. Really excited about camp and the way that our guys worked, all that went into that. A lot of individuals that make it happen, and just the effort and the work and getting all of our new faces integrated into our program. So been a very, very good camp for us. Excited to be able to open the season on Saturday here at home against the Ohio State Buckeyes. 3:30 kickoff on CBS, so it should be a awesome day. Looks like the weather's going to be nice as well. So questions?
Hey, Coach, I know you've been asked this a few times throughout camp about what positions you feel best about, maybe ones you have some question marks. I guess now that camp's over, you're going into preparation, kind of where do you feel most comfortable with your team, and maybe some areas where you're still kind of wait and see until you get on the field?
Yeah, I think, kind of throughout camp, as you guys have asked and we've talked about different positions, I think the area that kind of sticks out, numerically is our defensive line and just having some new guys there and the way those guys have performed during camp. So just excited to see those guys play. I think that's going to be one of the strengths of our defense. And then, our receiver room has a lot of depth to it. I like that room a lot. Running back room, I feel the same way about. And getting those guys through camp, working through injuries and nothing serious there, but just, everybody has little things along the way that you work through. But I feel good about where we're at with those guys on those positions and need a big week this week. Obviously, we're still in game week mode for preparation for that and just continuing to build our offensive line. The depth there is always big. It's always important. Like the progress those guys have made, but continue to work in that area as well. And then just keep building. I think the biggest question mark is just a lot of new faces in the secondary. So they'll be tested at a very, very high level right from the get-go. So definitely excited about that. So the kicking battle is really kind of an ongoing thing. Guys have definitely made a lot of progress there. Excited about where we are. I feel way better about that than I did a couple weeks ago. And those guys are thought performed very, very well in our mock game situation where they get a chance to really all their kicks are game situations for them. So I thought we did respond well there. Special teams was crisp and sharp. So got to play our best football right out of the gate.
I guess, Tom, do you have a starting kicker?
We do, yeah, and so and those guys know all that. We're not going to post anything, but feel good about that, and do feel like we have options, which is good. We got guys that have different skill sets and different strengths and things that they do in the kicking game. Obviously, both of our kickers are inexperienced in regards to field goals, on college Saturdays, but in regards to the reps, I feel really good about where we're at with that, and just I think they're ready to roll.
So I just want to follow up. I know you've split kickoff place kicking before. Would you split place kicking based on maybe distance or anything like that, or do you want the person handling place kicks and extra points to be the same person no matter what?
No, I would say, Chris Freeman's going to be our kickoff specialist. That's, he was our specialist all last year. He does a great job with that. He's done really, really well all fall camp. And the field goals themselves is where we're kind of still working through, and I think it could be a situation where it's distance driven, based on certain parts of the field, different areas where guys are better at, even locations, hashes and but more probably distance than anything. But at the same time, when you got some new opportunities there, and I feel good about the multiple options we have, but both Chris and Nico have really done well, and so I feel like that those guys have put themselves in position to be ready when called upon. So we'll probably let the situation dictate that.
Tom, the Big Ten announced the initiative on Friday to announce lineups 2 hours ahead of time, among other things. What are your feelings on that? What input did the coaches give on that? And just kind of generally, what have been some of the things you've been doing within the program to counter some of the concerns about sports wagering with it being legal here in Indiana? That's it.
Yeah, so it was obviously discussed, several weeks ago within the Big Ten in our meetings, and so obviously we were expecting that to happen, and so that was really driven by our leadership in our conference, and so I think the coaches we had some questions at first, just how it was going to look and work, and but I think it's not real specific. I mean, obviously, if a guy's out, he's out, and that's one thing where if you list him as out, then he cannot play, and that's one thing that's different, instead of just saying, hey, this guy is probable or whatever, you just in these situations. But and then the second category is a guy that's, could play, may not play, and so I think it's good. I think it's good for all of us to be able to have that clarity and that openness about it. And there's been a couple teams over the years that have done this. I know Wisconsin did this and has always done this for a while since I've been here, and so we did play them. The couple times we played them, they would put theirs out, and so. But I think that in regards, I think everybody knows why they're doing this, and so I think it's something that is good, and we're all on the same page, and we wanted to kind of be a leader in that, and as a conference, and so our new commissioner really pushed for this, and I think he was right, and I think it's the right thing to do, and I think our guys, that might affect our players, so, but we have a systematic way of communicating that and putting that out before kickoff, and I like the fact that everybody's doing the same thing.
Given your inexperience and all the new faces, has there been any changes to game week, or have you thought through that, kind of trying anything different or different approaches, given kind of the different roster you've had versus past years? Yeah, it has.
It's affected some things we've done in practice. It affected the way we did our mock game. Just having so many new guys, just making sure it was probably more true to a real game than it's been. Since I've been here, just because of having a number of guys that are new with us that are going to be playing. A lot of times you get new faces, but those guys are not playing as much. But I think you're going to see there's a lot of new faces that are going to do a lot of the playing. So I think that's important to do that. And then just even as this week unfolds, yes, and this is our first true game week, and obviously to be able to go through that schedule and flow and all the things we're doing, and just being very, very prescriptive about that with our guys and our coaching staff and the meeting time with our players. I just think that when you have new individuals, even we have a few new coaches as well, so just making sure that there's no game day things that haven't been covered thoroughly, and I want to make sure we're really on point with all that. This should allow them to be able to be in a routine and be able to play their best and function at their best as a coaching staff. So yeah, I think there's no question that the newness of a lot of guys has caused us to really be kind of very, very purposeful in everything we do. We always have been, but even to a higher degree for sure.
Obviously, whoever you go with a quarterback, you have a redshirt freshman that's kind of getting thrown into the fire against Ohio State, one of the top teams in the country. Just how do you make sure that they go with the right mentality? They don't they don't feel the pressure of kind of a tough challenge, and whichever guy it is, just what do you need out of that position against Ohio State on Saturday? It's
Preparation. Preparation creates that confidence. There's nothing you can do. You got to play the game. And there's no other way around it. I think that's experience has taught me that. I think it's somewhat obvious in a lot of ways, but at that position for sure, you just got to be in the fire. You got to be able to have those opportunities, and so, but preparing in every possible way. And I think that's a big emphasis. I sit in almost every single quarterback meeting and have the whole entire fall camp and just the work that they're doing, and even like we think about, hey, Monday's an off day. Well, it's an off day for everybody but the quarterbacks, and that's how they operate, that's how they think, and the way they study, feel, and prepare, and all the work that they're doing together, and I think that's huge. And so, but I think it's just you prepare and you leave no stone unturned, and that the competence that you have in your position and your skill set and what you're doing and running the offense. I just want them to be confident and play with decisive decision making. And you try schematically to help in that regard. You want to make sure you set them up to have the best success possible, and obviously, but they still got to get in the fire and play against a really, really talented defense that's big and fast and physical and has really, really good coaches, and they're going to be very well coached. And so yeah, that's to me is just a matter of is preparation. That's the best answer I can give, and that's going to be key, and it's going to reveal itself, and we got to do a great job as coaches of putting it in the best position possible.
Coach, you kind of alluded to it a little bit earlier, talking about the young defensive backs, but going up against a really talented Ohio State wide receiver group, what are you kind of looking for, expecting from that group, and maybe how the meetings kind of transpired a little bit going into this week?
Well, yeah, I think it's, it's all you got to do is put the film in and watch it for a little bit, and then they've added some new talented receivers to the group that was already very, very talented. So, but I think it's like anything else, it's, we have to play extremely well within our system, and we have to do what we do well, and they're going to have some catches and get some yards. You got to be able to do a great job of preventing the explosive plays. I think we all know that, but saying that and doing that is not as simple as it might sound. And so, but at the same time, you got to play your system, and we got to do a great job of like we always do within our scheme of doing disguising things. And if they know what you're in, it's not usually good for the defense, and so they've got such talented players. Now they're going to have a new quarterback, whoever it might be, and I'm sure we're expecting to see them both, and so to be able to adapt to that. But, it's once again, it goes back to what I even said with the quarterbacks. It's preparation, it's confidence, it's playing at a high level of hey, you know what, they make a play, we got to flush it, we got to play the next play. We make a play ourselves, we got to flush it, we got to play the next play. And that maturity. And we do have some new faces, but some of these guys have played football, quite a bit. So they may be new to us, but not new to the game and not new to college football. So, but they also do have some young guys who are going to be playing more than they've played in the past in the secondary. So, but yeah, they'll be tested without question, and they'll be put in a situation where they're going to have to play really, really well, and they're also going to have to have a really, bad memory. Something happens, you just got to flush and you got to go, and we respect them without question, but we got to play our game, we got to play to our standard, and we got to play really good football and defense.
Yeah, just throughout the last 4 weeks or so of fall camp, can you point to a few players that you feel like maybe have improved their stock the most or kind of maybe pushed for more playing time than maybe you would have expected?
Yeah, I think Amari Farrell is a guy that sticks out to me. Been here since January, true freshman, really good football player. And really, he's a guy that we've said, we got to get him involved on special teams, and he's risen on the depth chart. Jordan Greer's another one that's elevated his status on our team, and I think really improved a lot as a player, in the course of the spring, and I expected that and wanted that from these guys, especially a guy like Jordan who's been here. A guy like Amari, you really don't know. He's his first fall camp he's ever been in, and has had spring football as a high school athlete from the state of Florida, but being here all summer, just changed his body in the off season, coming through the summer, and just being a guy that when you put the pads on, just shows up, and I think that's a really good thing. That's what you want, I think Linnell Carr continues to be a guy that is playing with a lot of confidence right now in regards to what we see in practice, and so it needs to translate to the game without question. But he's a guy that's been, is playing a higher level maybe than we even expected in the beginning. So I'm really excited about that. Those are guys that need to do that at a high level for sure. I think Donovan McCulley continues to elevate his game, and that to me is something that I really challenge him about. And he's worked extremely hard this offseason, and just being able to be a guy that can, make game-changing plays, which is what we need on that side of the ball, and need to create explosive plays on offense to be able to allow us to move the football and then do good things in that regard. So those guys stick out to me.
Tom, can you talk a little bit about the respect you have for Ryan Day, the job he's done, the consistent excellence that he's done?
There's no question, it amazes me, sometimes when you hear some people's comments, about whatever, and all they've done is win a lot, and just go through and you study what they've done offensively. It's impressive, and the way they continue to recruit. And obviously he took, was obviously, given a great situation without question, but that's hard to take it and elevate it. They were one makeable field goal away from playing for a national championship, and so I have a ton of respect for him. I think he's done a tremendous job there, and I think he's a first-class person. I think he cares about his players. I think he does it the right way, and I just think he's I think he's special. I really do. And so, yeah, a lot of respect from my end from him and the way he does it. And obviously being a defensive guy and he's an offensive guy and he calls our plays. And so I just think that he's sharp and just really maximizes. Obviously they have great players and that's part of it too. But also has a system in place that's puts you in a lot of conflicts defensively. He's done a tremendous job. It's a lot of pressure. They're expected to do certain things every single week, and some people look at that and think, that's hard. That's hard to maintain that and then elevate it. And obviously, the expectation for them is to win a national championship. And so until you do that, you get questioned. But at the same time, you can see it, and they just continue to get better and better. And they may have their best team that he's had since he's been there.
Tom, we've asked you a lot about, I guess, the uncertainty around your team, position battles, things like that. But how do you prepare for an Ohio State team? You mentioned the new quarterbacks, I think a couple new tackles, obviously a change at coordinator, even if Ryan Day is going to continue calling plays. Just how does that change the way you think about them when maybe you've got to single out some things that aren't really clear yet?
Yeah, that's a really good point because, you think about those, the tackles, the center, and the quarterback. That's really kind of the triangle of how things operate, for an offense. And, once again, talented players. We've been through this before where they have a, new quarterback and it's whoever's going to be is going to be a very, very talented player. And they're going to have some new guys at other positions, but they're going to be very, very talented new guys, even though we haven't seen them play, a lot for Ohio State. So, but the unknown to me, when you think about quarterback-wise, we've had, I think this is not very many times that we had a quarterback, that we don't really know a lot about, and so there's not a lot. You have to go back to high school film, for a lot of these guys, for both of these guys, so I think that makes it unique, and they're also different quarterbacks as well. They have different skill sets, and so both can throw the ball extremely well, and one's more athletic than the other one is. From a running perspective, both can elude things, so that does create challenges without question, and so, but we got to have a great plan for that, great plan for both, but they have a standard of how they play, and you got a consistency in what they're doing offensively, so that's going to make it very, you just gotta go out and you gotta out compete them, and for balls and for plays and to making tackles, and we got to tackle extremely well. They get you in space. They got great athletes, and that's where they really put a lot of pressure on you defensively. So, but yeah, from a position perspective, that's going to have to be in-game adjustmts. We'll see how it unfolds and who they're using and how they're using them, and how that chooses to be able to, modify what they do. But their system is what it is, and they do a really good job. So you guys got to, at the end of the day, you got to stop it.
Easier said than done against an explosive Ohio State offense and talents like Marvin Harrison Jr. But as Allen said, succinctly and accurately, there's nothing like being tested by the very, very best. Illinois has been one of the best in the West since Bret Bielema took over. Obviously, a quick ascent since Coach B returned inside the Big Ten. And that ascent to what Illinois hopes is a trip to Indianapolis this year in the final year of Big Ten divisional play begins on Saturday night against Toledo, 7:30 Eastern, 6:30 Central Time. Always great to hear what Bret Bielema has to say, so let's do exactly that.
Yes, obviously excited to get to game week. A lot of build up and a lot of things from last spring, to go through the spring, to go through the summer, to go through fall camp. Couldn't be more excited. I know as a head coach going to my 15th year, every season just a little bit different, but these guys have really been a joy to work with. The new additions, we had 40 guys going to fall camp that had never been with us through a fall camp. We probably have somewhere in the neighborhood of 20, 25 guys that will take their first snaps as Illinois football players on Saturday night, and a lot of that goes into, obviously their preparation, how they do things, but now to get it all coordinated and kind of play in a way that you need to play to beat a team like Toledo. Toledo's a very good football team, obviously picked to win the MAC again, and Coach Candle has done a tremendous job ever since he took over and has won more games in that league than anybody else. So a very difficult task in front of us, one I think our guys are excited to play. From a medical standpoint, obviously, it said Matt Bailey, and then the only other guy, Zeke Holmes, probably will not be with us on Saturday night. he's continued to get back and put himself in a position, but we're kind of pushing a pause button for him and just kind of letting that kind of get back underneath him. But he's been practicing with us last 2 or 3 weeks. Just had a conversation with him last night to take a pause, see where we're at after a couple weeks, and see where we go. So only other thing is there's a couple, unfortunately, during fall camp, happened actually a couple weeks ago. We've known about it for a while, but two guys, ironically, from the same high school, Malachi Hood, unfortunately, just kind of a routine play, non-contact, was decelerating, and he suffered a popped Achilles tendon. So he was a guy that was kind of really on the bubble of whether he was going to be with us. Had done a really good job of getting himself ready last spring, all winter, all summer, and had a really good preparation to get to where we are. And he was a guy kind of on that bubble travel roster. Has just been awesome to see his growth. So unfortunately, he won't be with us this fall. And then on the same high school football team, ironically, Jordan Anderson in our last scrimmage kind of came out of a run and put his foot down. Unfortunately, popped his ACL, so he actually is in a rehab to get himself ready. Malachi's already had surgery. Everything went great. We're waiting for Jordan to kind of get himself in a position, and then he will he'll start his rehab process. Unfortunately for those guys, both of them redshirted last year, so excited to get him out there this year, but obviously we'll have to wait another year to see that kind of play out. So really that's it. Been very fortunate, I think, all spring and all summer and all fall camp to have a limited amount of guys miss with that time. Zai is cleared. Zai will be back with us Tuesday at practice, and shouldn't have anything moving forward with him. He's been great. A couple other guys with some nicks and bruises should be full go for Tuesday's practice. We actually went under the lights last night. Probably had one of our better practices of the year. Just guys are really crisp, flying around, clean. Really excited what I saw last night. We'll hit the practice field Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday and see where we go. So with that, open it up for questions.
No quarterback questions, but the availability list you're going to have submit a couple hours before the game. Big Ten just.
Oh, the Rhule?
Yeah, what was your take? Did the coaches have a submit?
Yeah, I kind of had that. I had a feeling that was kind of coming and trending in that direction. Really, since I came back into college football, when I was in the NFL, I was really amazed at the amount of volume of medical information that's released. But it's a different league up there, right? It's a business. There's certain protocols they got to follow all the way, starting back to. During the game week, they got to submit reports to do some things during the course of the week. This one's just literally on game day, and I would say, as a rule of thumb, as coaches, we probably know by Thursday to Friday. There's always going to maybe be once in a couple times a season where there's a guy that might be marginal. For instance, last year, getting ready for the Indiana game, I remember Julian Pearl got rolled up 2 days before the game. Really, no one knew about it. At first, they told us he was going to be out 2 to 4 weeks, and then we literally had to test him right before the game. He almost played, and unfortunately, he missed that game, but he came back for us the next week. So really, even in my time here, I can't see where this would actually draw much attention other than the normal stuff. But yeah, we'll kind of work our way through that. It's something that came about in the last couple of weeks. It had been talked about for a couple of months, but on away games, you travel 74, but what a lot of people don't realize is for home games, you can only take 74 to the hotel. So it's already kind of a 74-man roster. So all I see is us, if there's somebody that's on that roster that may or not be involved, for the 2 reporting levels, I think they're going to have either someone out or someone that could be questionable. Probably just a little more red tape for us to work through, but it's probably something in the long run might be better, especially in this day and age with all the gambling going around and everything else. I think that's probably the driving force more than anything.
I think Brian Kelly has talked about doing what the NFL does and releasing something on Tuesday and Thursday as well. I mean, do you see it getting to that point?
I personally wouldn't, but I do think that we'll do is what the conference of Brian Kelly can do, whatever Brian Kelly wants to do. I think for us, even in our league, I know last year there were a couple teams that reported injuries, and I kind of was always just amazed at how that kind of came out. I understand the whole side the world is dealing with right now with gambling and all that goes into it, but for me, I just kind of would rather, if there's information out there, that's out there, but if it's not out there, I don't really want it out there, so it is what it is.
Running back, it looked like Jordan was kind of up in that top 3, top 4 in the times that we were able to come in. So what's the ripple, Jordan Anderson, what's the ripple effect of him being out?
Well, you guys probably saw limited action in the fall, but he when we started fall camp, unfortunately, he also tweaked his back a little bit, was coming back, just literally had just come back from that. So really, since we started fall camp, I would say by far Josh and Reggie have taken the majority of the reps with the ones. With the twos and threes, it kind of just rotated between Caden and Aiden, and then Jordan had worked his way back into it. Unfortunately, as soon as he got back in there, it was pop. So the good side is those two guys that are kind of that next group of guys to go in. I would tell you, if you asked our offensive players for sure, and probably our defensive guys, if anybody wants to see those freshmen take their first reps, I bet you a lot of people would vote between Caden Fagan, Malik Elzy, and Aiden Lawfrey. They're probably kind of a tie for those three guys to watch their first snap in college football.
What are some things that you may worry about a little bit more in week one than you will later on in the season?
So there were 7 FBS games this past weekend, 7 teams that played FBS teams, and I made an edit that I showed our guys yesterday, and I knew a lot of them probably had watched the Notre Dame game. That was the most publicized one. Obviously, the USC game was an Apple TV game, so you had to have that all set up. But I took the San Diego State game. I took the UMass game. I took the Jacksonville State game, and kind of just showed, and then the other big one, Vanderbilt versus Hawaii. In the first quarter, there were 3 special teams things that really were a big impact in the game. Turnovers were huge. So I always take the world of college football to show our guys what they can do. So I think you just worry about those things, guys that haven't taken their first snaps. We have a new special teams coordinator. Dish has been an unbelievable breath of fresh air, just really some of the ideas, thoughts. I was really intrigued at his time in Georgia with the punt team. They've kind of done it differently than we've done it here. So with a 2-man shield, moving that, getting 3 flyers, that's a little different look. I think anything that involves, our defense and the changes since a year ago, right? There's going to be some strengths of what we do up front. I think in the back end, there's some guys that have played a lot of good football, but I'm sure everybody's excited to see what the back end can bring. So they're just natural things in an opener that you always talk about.
What's unique about getting ready for a night game and then multiple night games?
Yeah, so 4 of our first 6, and then they're kind of just play the games as they play. So our last 2 week 0 games have been during the day, right? So that was what our first 2 preps, but we prepped a lot at night. So I don't think it's really any different. We practice in the morning now, but we're obviously in tune with what goes on. That we're going to play day games, night games, Penn State games already scheduled at noon. So I don't think, for me as a head coach now going to my 15th year, the time of the game isn't such an important task as getting your guys ready to understand what that means, right? Like at night, here in Memorial Stadium, the effect of that stadium is a lot different than maybe next week when we go to Kansas. Just wind can be a factor here that is a little bit more significant. But I don't really see the time of the game being a factor, but more just get our guys ready. I thought we were really fast last night, and now we want to keep that. Our legs were fresh. Guys talk about how good they feel. I think we really want to have that be in full effect Saturday night.
In the week 0 games you were able to note, did you notice the first down rule playing an impact at all and how you guys prepare?
Yeah, I think it'll eliminate, what they did it for was they were trying to eliminate total volume of reps and make the game a little more consistent as far as length of time. In college football, you can get a game that's 2 hours and get a game that's 4.5 hours, right? And that makes it hard for the TV people to kind of manage it. But for us, we've really talked a lot about how that is going to change. They'll get conditioned to that clock isn't going to stop, and it's not really going to take effect, and it won't become a glaring to them until maybe like a 4-minute mark, the middle 8, and then especially when it clicks past that 2-minute 1:59 mark, it's gonna significantly. And you saw it, this past weekend. USC, I believe, got the ball with 1:35 in the first half, had all 3 timeouts. San Jose State had 2 timeouts, if not 3, and USC kind of stalled out, had a sack. They had burned 2 timeouts. One was the play clock was rolling down. One was the clock on the punt team on a backed up was running out. They had to burn 2 timeouts. San Jose State gets the ball on the 45-yard line, have a couple plays, then they hit a big second down shot, and they score, I believe, with less than 15 seconds and never use that 1 timeout. So there's some really good educational football out there if you want to take advantage of it, and hopefully we'll do that.
What kind of jumps out at you about Toledo on both sides of the ball?
Well, without a doubt, just the way they're coached. Coach Kendall, just very impressed. The success he's had, it doesn't come by chance. He's got really good players that play really good football. We always talk and preach about good football plays as a result of good fundamentals, and it screams on their film all over the place how well they're coached, how well they're disciplined. offensively, there's no doubt Finn, like number 7, is a very dynamic, incredibly gifted athlete that makes good decisions with the ball. He's very effective on early downs. He can make something special on any given play. I always say that the greatest value of a great quarterback is someone who can make something of nothing. And sometimes the answer isn't always clear, and then he makes something that isn't there. And he's very, very difficult to defend in that regards. They got perimeter players. They got a couple wide receivers that are very gifted. They got a running back that's very dynamic. They got an Outland Trophy watch list person up front on the defense side of the ball, on the perimeter especially. They got a couple really good DBs, a safety, a corner that are exceptional. They got an active middle linebacker. Special teams, they've actually had a transition as well. Their special teams coordinator came from South Carolina and had been at Kansas State. So just to learn and study and watch him over the last several stops he's had has been pretty impressive. So not really one thing that you got to, say just one thing. They're just extremely very talented. They got, I believe they have somewhere close to the same number of players up for national award lists that we have, which is very impressive. And to watch those guys play, it's going to be a tremendous task in front of us right away.
Reggie played last year, Reggie Love. What does this opportunity mean for him, and what's he bring to you guys?
Reggie and Josh both, I think the neat thing for me is just the growth they've had from a year ago. I think both those guys last year going into the year were kind of battling for that spot behind Chase, and unfortunately both of them kind of had some injury setbacks during the course of the year. Josh, got the knee bruise early. As soon as he got healthy, he got tangled up over on the sideline. Reggie kind of had a couple things pop up during the course of the year. Obviously, Chase had an exceptional year, so I think those two guys, knowing and owning where they started last winter, jumping into the spring, obviously a new coach in Thad. I've bragged a lot about the 4 coaches I've hired. Thad in his presence, his knowledge of the game, his understanding, his ability to coach. I think it's really taken those 2 players especially to a different level than they've been at, and really impressive to watch that happen. And then obviously the real tell, come Saturday. What's been really fun for me, and I know Thad's aware of it, and Barry and I were talking during the course of the spring, and then during the summer when we kind of get, it's just the interaction between those 2. They both cheer for one another. They both, push each other, but also understand the value in those 2 knowing what's going on, because they literally give feedback all the time, and I'm excited to see this work out on game day.
Can you compare your comfort level now to, as opposed to opener 2 years ago, opener last year? Do you have a reference there for you?
Bob, I get the question, but to me, it's literally every year is just a little bit different, right? We have 3 quarterbacks that none of them have played a snap for Illinois football, right? That's even though BP going into my first year had been a multi-game starter, right? You just have that comfort level with someone you've been in there with. Now, what I am excited about, right? I do think our guys have worked very hard. They're very diligent. The work they put in with Tank to be in condition where they are for us to play the way we played through spring, summer, and fall, and to have as few injuries just tells me they think the right way. But until the bullets start flying, it really, each season is kind of the same. I'm not going to be surprised by certain things I'm going to see, right? There's going to be a really good play, and we can't get too high. There's going to be a really bad play, and we can't get too low. We got to handle adversity. As coaches, we got to handle the moment we're living in. Excited to watch our guys respond, excited to watch our coaches respond, and we have a unique challenge this week, right? And believe me, there is nothing more we've focused on the last 10 days in Toledo, right? But as soon as that game's done, we really got to turn the page very quickly, because Kansas is a short week without a day off. So, once you jump into the season, it's all bars are set and all tones are leveled out, and you just kind of got to focus on the day ahead.
Kind of along those lines, I'm curious if there's any ways that you felt the outside perception of this program change as compared to where you were.
That's one that's easy to see, and something I've been really guarded against. For me, I've always kind of tried to, as a head coach, I think you got to be ahead of where you're at, and I kind of had a steady crescendo. I knew a lot of our guys were up for national awards. I know that we, received votes to be ranked, right? We didn't get ranked, but we beat teams that were ranked, right? So I kind of made note of all of that. Toledo, we refer to them, they're the MAC champs, all right? There's no denying what they've done and what they've been able to do in college football has been pretty impressive. So I'm balancing that all the time, but the part that we, as coaches, got to be aware of now is just the immediate access to our players have to letting people tell them how good they are, right? Johnny Newton's doing a podcast for the Heisman, right? And I'm like, holy cow, right? Like when Bret came to me with that, I'm like, all right, we got a D lineman, it's in the Heisman race, right? Like, I mean, so some of these things are new charted waters. I've had some pretty good D linemen. I've never had one in the Heisman race before the year started, right? So like whether there's reality to that or not is reality to them. They called and asked, right? So I'm very guarded about what our guys are hearing and making them understand. Like I keep calling them wish list, not watch list, right? Like they wish you to be good. I wish you to be good. You wish yourself to be good, but really what you do is going to determine how well you get rewarded. So I think we got a hungry football team. I think we got a group of guys that really want to work. I think they understand the ability to be humble is a really good trait. Last year we were a 7-1 team that, finished the year 1-4, and there are a lot of different things that probably factored into that. But we got to keep the edge that we're in every game. We got to have not one chip on our shoulder, but two, and that's how we got to play.
Love Bret Bielema mentioning Johnny Newton. Is he a Heisman candidate? Could be. That is a rarity at defensive tackle. And Bielema pointed out he's never had a D tackle preseason in that kind of conversation. Remember a guy named J.J. Watt was on those Wisconsin teams that Bielema coached? He was pretty good as well. Northwestern opens its season on the road, a rare Sunday opener in conference play as the Wildcats travel to the Banks to face Rutgers. Northwestern will then go non-con against UTEP and Duke. You see that Howard game on October 7th mixed into what is certainly a strange schedule for the Wildcats in 2023, though right now a lot of stuff taking place in Evanston has been, shall we say, out of the ordinary. David Braun is the man who will be calling the shots for the Wildcats this season. He's hosting his first in-season press conference as we head to Evanston to listen in.
Well, we're here, game week. I know our staff, I know this team is really excited to embark on this. We got into rhythm and routine last week. This will be a full week of prep. Our guys have today off. We'll be back at it tomorrow, and then get into our weekly progression. Know that we have quite a task on our hands. Having a chance to look at Rutgers over the course of the last few months. And having an opportunity to just observe what Coach Schiano has done over the years. We know that we're going to deal with a team that's well prepared, well coached, very fundamentally sound. We'll play a physical brand of football that certainly fits Big Ten football well. Opportunity for this team to go on the road and really see where we're at. Very confident in the way that our guys have navigated fall camp. This past Saturday was a great opportunity for us to get back over to Ryan Field and really get into a game day rhythm and routine for a young football team, for a football staff that has a lot of newcomers, including myself, just to get into that daily or that game day routine and what that looks like from a warm-up standpoint in and out of the locker room, what halftime looks like. I know is really beneficial, to our group. But you can sense the level of anticipation, excitement, where this team is at. We have a confident football team right now. I think a group that understands that there's some really outstanding veteran leadership, complemented with a lot of youthful talent, and there's no doubt that myself and the rest of this group is excited to compete against someone else other than their own teammates, and to do it in a Big Ten format on a Sunday. With a lot of eyes on us, and an opportunity for this group to really start writing their own story is something that all of us are really looking forward to.
Have you made the decision about who's going to be your starting quarterback yet?
We've made that decision. We're keeping that decision in-house right now.
What were some of your takeaways just from the scrimmage and sort of that final opportunity before your actual?
Yeah, it was very mock game-ish. I mean, everything we were doing were scout looks and an opportunity for us to continue to prepare for Rutgers. But, my takeaways were, number one, this group been on a slow build, and they're amping up to that point where you can tell they're ready to play. The other takeaways, from it were just really have seen this group overall mature throughout fall camp. You can just tell in terms of the way that the offense is operating, the defense is operating, some of the quirks that we maybe had to work out from the first live scrimmage have started to work themselves out. You can tell that we have a focus group right now.
You had mentioned last week about having a lot of leaders on the team. Have you held elections for captain yet? And have players been selected? And if so, who are those guys going to be?
We have held a vote for it. We have not announced those names yet, but that's something that we plan on doing this week. Excited to announce those names. Excited about not only excited about the results of those, but also just really impressed by the number of young men that were voted for by their teammates. I think it reflects not just a small group of leadership. I think there's leadership throughout our locker room right now that has been absolutely necessary as we've navigated late July and into August.
Coach, Evan Hall's moved on to the Indianapolis Colts. Tell us a little bit about that running back room and how it's progressing.
It's Cam Porter is, he's awesome. I mean, just his maturity and the way that he carries himself in that room. Trey Tyus continues to step up. I mean, just a big back that, as he gets more reps and creates more confidence, is certainly going to be, what you would want out of a traditional Big Ten back and provide some depth at that position. Joe Hyman continues to just really impress me. And I'm only coming from a perspective of someone that's looking at it through a defensive lens, but just has an explosive quality that we're really excited about. Jake Arthurs just continues to impress. Local kid that's done everything that we've ever asked of him. Incredibly reliable, someone that we'll lean on a ton this year. And then, Caleb Komolafe is a young man, true freshman that, we'll see what his role looks like moving forward. Don't know exactly what that role looks like. Not sure if he's going to redshirt or not, but as a true freshman, someone in that room that has definitely turned some heads as we've gone through fall camp.
Coach, as a follow-up, with any of those players you just talked about play on special teams?
You know what? All of them are going to be prepared to. But, specifically, Caleb is positioned himself to be someone to be considered. And again, we got to kind of weigh those options as a true freshman. But all those guys that we mentioned have taken reps, whether it be in individual drills in special teams or specific scheme. But one thing that we've identified as a staff, considering our current situation and roster numbers, everyone is going to have to play a critical role. And, one thing our guys understand is your effort on special teams, in my opinion, having been a special teams coordinator before, is the ultimate reflection about how much you truly care about the team. There's no one comes into Northwestern saying, "Hey, I want to be the starting right guard on punt." But the effort and intentionality and preparation that you put in those special teams, direct reflection of how much you care about the team, and something that our guys understand. And what you even referenced, those. All the young men, that sit in this team meeting room have dreams and aspirations of playing football beyond their college years. There's no better way to create value on an NFL roster early on than to show your value on special teams. And there's no doubt in my mind that our team understands the value not only for this team but also the value moving forward for them individually. I think it's a good question. I just get a sense from our team, from our staff, they're just ready. They're just ready. They've galvanized. They've come together. Leadership has stepped up. They're ready to go compete. You can feel that in the building. There's no doubt about that.
Is it because of just everything else that was swirling on, and that they can just kind of focus more on football now, or is it?
I think it's a group that's coming off a 1-10 season, a group that certainly has had to navigate a unique time, and a group that's hungry, that's hungry to put on full display what they know they stand for in terms of just the resilience, continuity, togetherness that they've displayed these last few weeks.
You have your arms around what you're dealing with right now. You know, they're ready. How ready are you?
That's a great question. I think the element that I bring to this role, I'm not going to say it's unique. I just know who I am. I am extremely confident in my ability to lead, to inspire, to meet people where they're at, to pull people together for common purpose. And I also believe I have a unique ability to identify the things that I don't know or don't understand and wholeheartedly admit that I don't and seek, wisdom and expertise to help me navigate that. And I mean, some of that's going on right now with how am I going to manage the game while still calling a defense? Who am I leaning on? How much are we leaning into analytics? I mean, all these things that are going on. And I think step one, not having experience doing that, not having experience doing that at the Big Ten, at the Power 5 level, well, step one in identifying that, I say, you know what? I need help here. And I think I have a personality that allows me to do that and seek out that wisdom. Very confident in my ability to lead this team. And I know I've been put in this position for a reason, and I'm confident that I'm up to the task, up to the challenge. But I'm up to it because there's incredible people around me. Our players, our staff, support, outside the program that I've been able to lean on, mentors, people that are willing to pick up a phone call, hey, I really need to pick your brain. I mean, there's so many thank yous that I owe throughout this whole process. I'll continue to owe as we go throughout the season. But I know I'm up to the challenge, but I'm up to the challenge because I've got great people around me, and I've been willing to lean into that.
Whether it's kind of addressing the media every week or just speaking with your team, what have you kind of learned about communication throughout this process?
I think with the team specifically, transparency is key. Just being genuine, who you are, is absolutely critical. That's how you build up credibility. A lot of people want to throw around the word trust. You can't demand trust. That's something that you build through your actions. And I hope that anyone that's interacted with me since I've arrived at Northwestern would say that I've tried to do my best in both those worlds of just being as transparent as I possibly can be and just truly being myself. And I think that's what I've learned with opportunities to connect with media, some of which that I'm close with, that I have known previously, others that I'm meeting for the first time, but just speak with passion, speak from the heart, be true to who I am, and regardless of how other people interpret that, at least I can walk away from that interaction knowing that I was being myself.
I know he's yet to coach a game, but David Braun certainly saying all the right things in a really tough situation. I am extremely confident in my ability to lead, to inspire, to meet people where they're at, to pull people together for a common purpose, Braun said. I know I'm up to the challenge, but I'm up to the challenge because of the great people around me. That challenge starts in earnest on Sunday on the road against Rutgers. Of course, that is a late weekend game in Week 1. The earliest of Week 1 games taking place Thursday night as Nebraska opens up the Matt Rhule era on the road. Huskers traveling to Minnesota. You can see it. National broadcast on Fox. Late last week, Matt Rhule opened up about his team and the challenge and the opportunity that awaits him and the Huskers on Thursday night.
How was the simulated game last night? Kind of what did you guys get out of doing that? Having a team kind of go through a game day yesterday?
I think really two things. Just making sure we were under the lights again, making sure that our substitutions and all those things that can show up on the first game were as clean as possible. Got some really good work. The guys were really physical. So we worked on our football as well. And I think the biggest thing I told the team is, Coach Paterno used to always tell us, you make your biggest jump from game 1 to game 2. I think a lot of old coaches say that. So we don't want to try to do that after next week. We treated last night like a game so we could see, hey, where are we deficient? What do we need to improve upon? You can sometimes get to this last week and want to hurry up and get to the game, but we have to maximize every minute to improve.
You talked about liking Alex
Bullock and Isaiah throughout camp, but could you speak on them being at the top of the depth chart going into the season?
Yeah, we're going to play a lot of receivers. I mean, Isaiah, you saw the explosive nature that he has last year early on in the season when he played. So, to me, Isaiah's always been a starter for us, would be a starter. He, had some soft tissue stuff at the end of the spring, so they kind of held him back. But he's had a really good camp, great hands, smart, tough, fast. So excited about Isaiah. And then Alex, was not my intention usually when I have scholarships to give it to a senior who's put their time in, but you just can't deny what he's done. I mean, he's made one-handed catches, acrobatic catches. I mean, he's been dynamic all camp, and so he's a starter for us, and I think we'll play really well.
I know Marcus just got back, and we felt good about how he can work into being ready for next week.
Yeah, I'm taking it one day at a time. Marcus is he'll be healthy. And he's great thing about Marcus. He's played so much football. If anything, he probably knows the offense better now than he did before because he hasn't been practicing. So his only focus has been on coaching the other guys. He's done a great job coaching the young players, and so I'm sure Marcus will be ready.
So you put Alex on scholarship.
Yes, sir. Yeah.
How about that journey for just those two together, Alex and John, and just what they've done and accomplished in your program from where they were 9 months ago until now?
Well, I hope Mr. and Mrs. Bullock went out and bought a car, went on vacation or something. So that's got to be a nice penny. No, it's a great family. And, we want to be a program where everything's earned, I tell the guys, you want this, you want that, go earn it. And they've certainly earned it. One of the hardest things about being the head coach is sometimes you see players that are not on scholarship who deserve them. Unfortunately, not very often. Sometimes you have guys who are on scholarship who don't really maybe value them the way they should. They maybe take things for granted. We don't have very much of that at all. But we do have guys that deserve to be on scholarship, right? And there's others as well. So both those guys are valuable contributors. They're going to play a lot of football. And, it's not like we gave them one. We just got the one that they were owed to them. Just got a little later than we should have.
How much do you feel like you know about your team up to this moment? How much can you just not know until they play the game?
Yeah, we won't know truly who we are till we play a game, and probably a couple games, right? My challenge to them has been don't get to game 4 and game 5 and have all of a sudden everything slow down and have the light come on. Like, try to do it now. It's like, the all-in shows of some of the things have gotten out that I've said. I talk a little bit about, getting to that first game and there being a messy front end. There's also a messy front end to each season and a messy front end to a new coach. Next year will be so much easier. The guys will know what to expect. Every day that they walk in, Sam, they're kind of like, okay, what are we doing today, coach? And they're such good kids. Like, I had some kids at Temple that were kind of like, well, whatever you do, I'm going to do. These guys want to do everything right. And so I want them to prepare up into the game, but what I need to find out is, are they going to be the type of team that just goes out and plays and doesn't worry about what happens? That's the only way you can play this game is not to worry about the score, just go play. And so we talk about it all the time. I've seen them do it in practice. Will they do it in the game? That's the challenge. That's a challenge for me. That's a challenge for them.
Matt, how different is game week prep back at the college level compared to the last few years in the NFL?
I think my time in the NFL really prepared me to do this better, right? I think if we're playing for our staff or if they're being recruited by our staff, they're probably better prepared for things at the next level than maybe before. I've adopted probably more walkthroughs and things like that than meetings after my time there because I just see the value of like getting out there and feeling it and doing it. So the football's so different. It's like. At that level, you're preparing for like outside zone and duo, and then you get here, and it's like, how are we going to handle this RPO, that RPO? The football is way more, in some ways, complex or different, varied. But we're kind of going with the same schedule we used at Baylor. It's a unique practice schedule, but it's something we believe in, so I'm excited to do it with the guys.
Hey Matt, could you kind of describe how you found the collective mental state of the program when you first met with the team, and compare it to maybe what you think it is like now?
I think anytime you have a new coach coming in, there's just a lot of anxiousness and anxiety. They just went head coach. They went from Scott to Mickey, kind of got comfortable with Mickey. Then all of a sudden I show up. It's, hey, does this guy really want us here? What's he going to do? So there's probably just a lot of like hesitation. I don't know the right word. Hesitation. Probably a lot of just anxiety about what's the future going to hold. Where do I fit? I think everyone's very clearly, I think everything's pretty transparent. We want to have a very positive, stable, transparent environment, a very challenging environment. Like, we're not, you heard me say before, like, we're a caring, not coddling place. But I just think they kind of know where we stand. Everyone knows where they stand. They know what's expected. So I think we've come a long way in that regard.
I mean, I guess what I meant by the question was, I mean, did you find the team to be a beaten down team and now maybe they've come out?
No, I know what you meant. Yeah, I'm just not going to say anything about that. It's a great question. I don't want to say anything negative about the people that were here before me. And I think Mickey did a great job. I just think, they haven't won, right? Like, when you haven't won, you start being like, man, are we ever going to win? And what we've asked our guys to do is to take ownership of that. You know what I'm saying? So, I'll be honest with you. I will answer this though. I think this is like one of the most resilient groups of young people I've ever been around. Like, I've said it a couple times. I don't know if people take me seriously. I really feel like it's my obligation to watch. I remember Garrett Nelson sitting in my office, and Garrett Nelson needed to go to the NFL. Like, he was getting older. While I would love to have coached him, I was like, bro, it's your time. Like, go make it happen. But I remember Garrett, and I hope he's okay with sharing this, talking about like his father's legacy here and like how he wanted to be part of the group that turned it around. And I remember visiting with Nick and Luke, and they're trying to figure out, should we transfer? Should we stick around? Like, Coach Rhule, your MO is to kind of not be very good early and play the young guys. So, but their care for the program was so strong that I feel a tremendous obligation. Like, man, we have to find a way to help these guys win. So I don't know if they're beaten down as much as I would say just sort of like they want this so badly and they haven't been able to, and they're kind of looking everywhere. And I think we've just tried to be very focused about, hey, let's focus on these things. So I feel like we're in a good place right now.
Do you have a pretty good sense of what your game day operation is going to be? Like, who is Coach Sack going to be in the booth? Is Coach White going to be on the field? Like, do you have a sense of that? I know you coach both offense and defense, so you probably have thoughts on both.
Yeah, I just think it's really the play callers have to be comfortable. I mean, I would never want to call a game from the field. I'd always want to be up top where it's a little bit more, sterile and less emotional. But Sat likes to call it from the field. Tony likes to call it from the field. Sometimes the coordinators that work for me rather just go up in the box and get away from me after a couple of games. But I don't spend too much time worrying about it. If I'm being serious, like, to me, we've done so much preparation. There's not a thing that'll be called that we haven't prepared for and talked about. Like, we literally will talk about, hey guys, it's I'll sit there and say it's 3rd and 7 on the 32-yard line. I say you have 2 downs. We're going for a 4th and 3. What are you calling? And they better be able to say it to me like that. So, and Stats, he lead at that. He's worked for me before, and Tony's really smart in that way, and so is Ed. So, but I would think all 3 coordinators would be down on the field, and then probably Garrett would go up top because Garrett's really sees the passing game well. Aaron Cooling, who's one of the finest young coaches I've ever been around, he was he's a graduate assistant for us. And that allows him to be on the headset. He works hand in hand with Donnie, so he'll be up as well, seeing the run game, and then one other coach, and then on defense, I would anticipate like Rob going up, and then I'm not sure what they're going to do with Coop. So, but I would see the coordinators being down on the field.
Coach, what's so much newness for this season, and you in particular? How's this been for you to go through this process, and what are you feeling as you get ready for Game 1 here in Nebraska?
I'm having the time of my life. I really am. This is as happy as I've been in a really, really long time. My family's here now. My girls are happy at school. My family's happy. My wife's happy. My son's doing well. I really enjoy this team. I told our team the other day, I bring Leona. She's 8. I bring her around. She's around on Saturday. She'll be here all day Saturday. She'll be here all day Sunday. She's at the practice. She thinks Chief's her older brother. She plays catch with Chief. She sits in the team meeting. She gets on me about my language. But I told the team, I said, it's one thing when you bring your son, right? Like, it's one thing to bring your son. Like, when I bring my daughter, that's a statement of what I think about the men in the team, right? Like, I would not bring my daughters around men that I would not want her to look up to. And so, because of the collective group of people that's here, because of Trev, because of Dennis LeBlanc and Jamie Vaughn and Marquita Armstead and Doug Ewald and all the people, at that level, because of Sean and Susan and Keith and all the people that, there's just an elite group of people here, right? And so I really am having the time of my life. I haven't been this happy in a long time. You can tell by the look on my face, probably.
What's one thing from the beginning of camp to now 6 days out that you guys have grown in or improved on that you're most proud of?
Football IQ and intelligence, situational football. When I first got here, it was kind of like, when we first got started, it was kind of like, hey, just let me ball, let me play, let me do my thing. Like, there's really no doing your thing when you play against good teams, right? It's like executing in the moments and in the situations and matching each moment with excellence. And so now I feel like we're at a moment where, like, I can put the ball down. Like I don't know if you noticed in the one TV show that we did, like, you know, I'll give a situation to two players and then they run off and tell everybody. Like, I couldn't have done that in the spring as well. Right now, like, I'd say it to the guys and they're locked into the situation. So situational awareness. Now, will that carry over to the game? I don't know. Like, I've shown them 2018 Colorado. I've shown them what's the game where Eric hits the guy down the sideline to kick a field goal. They Colorado scores with like 2000. Thank you. I showed them and the A&M game. I've shown them all these old games, both with us. Today we watched Syracuse Purdue, right? So just all these end of game situations. And I'd say when I first started, I'd say, "What do you guys hear?" And I'd have like three guys, you know. Well, now there's a chorus of guys that understand what's happening, understand the situation, what should happen. So I'd say our situational awareness has really jumped up. And in a day and age where a lot of guys don't really watch football, like I watch the ESPN game and I'm like, "Did anybody watch it?" And they all kind of look at me like, they're watching that they're watching the highlights on YouTube or they're watching it on TikTok, which is, hey, it is what it is, man. But watching that together, I think, is really good because we have a common language situationally.
How much is your overall approach geared toward reversing the trend of losing close games? Do you think of it that way?
No, if anything, I sometimes I get upset when like you guys ask a question, our guys will talk about last year. I don't think there's any value in us talking about the past other than learning from it, like the football. Because it has nothing to do with me. Like, I wasn't here, so like, why would I talk about, like, if you were asking me, like, "Hey Matt, let's talk about what happened at Baylor or Carolina or Temple," I'd 100, you know. But I think what's happened in the past was just a different entity. We have to answer for the things that we do, right? So I'm more worried about just being on the front end of what we do than the previous things that have happened, if that makes any sense. Like if we go out to kick the game-winning field goal, I certainly don't want Tristan thinking about, well, this guy made this kick or missed this kick. You know, I want him thinking about just right now. So I came into the job, though, to answer it, knowing, like, hey, this team's close. We have certain things we have to do. So that's why we've put such an emphasis on how we eat. Like, the guys don't love the fact that I make them eat 3 meals a day in the training table. Sometimes they just want to go out and eat Subway. But we do it because we want them to get as big and strong as possible so we can win games in the fourth quarter, right? The way that we lift, the way that we do everything.
That's what I meant.
Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah. So, yeah, I just don't want. I try not to talk about, hey guys, we've lost a ton of close games, because I think that puts that in the universe. For me, it's like, we're going to win close games because we're doing X, Y, and Z. And I want them to draw on, like, honestly, I mean, the match drills we did were really, really hard, and this training camp was really, really hard. I mean, this was really, really hard, and I want them to take pride. And we're playing Minnesota. I have the utmost respect for PJ Fleck. He's a friend of mine. I love the way he runs his program. It's different than me, but I love the fact that I'm in Texas. I can walk into a high school and I see, like, Hyper and Ski Man row the boat on a wall, and I'm like, oh, PJ was here, huh? Like, that's it. He believes in that, and it's what I love about them. It's why they've done what they've done over 7 years, and the way they play the game is the way I like to play the game. They run the ball, they play defense, they execute on third downs, and so, like, we understand, like for us to go play in that game on the road, the first game for us as an entity together, we have to have gone through a really hard training camp. And we have to have taken our confidence from that. This Tuesday's practice, you know, I know kind of went out there and said it was a little bit lethargic, which drives me nuts that he said that. It was 110 degrees, and we were practicing like we were in Junction, like the guys, the guys battled, right? It wasn't good enough, and so we told them, but like we have a group that has really worked hard, and I want them to take confidence from that. And that confidence only means that you've earned the right to go play against another really good team. It should be a great game, but I guess that's more of my thing. I want them to take their thoughts about what we've done since we've gotten here, but the whole thing was geared for, hey, let's get this team over the hump if we can. So.
Hey, Matt,
We will see Minnesota for the first time on Thursday night as the Gophers take on Nebraska, Fox National broadcast. Then it's Eastern Michigan and North Carolina, Louisiana later in September. That's Minnesota's non-con, though because of this Nebraska game, they'll play twice by the 23rd of September in conference play starting on Thursday night. Can't wait for the Gophers and Huskers. We've heard from Matt Rhule. Now we hear from PJ Fleck.
All right, great to see everybody as we get ready for game one against Nebraska. Sold out, gold out?
So I just want to thank all of our fans for selling out Huntington Bank Stadium next Thursday on Fox. I know our team's looking forward to that. I'm sure Nebraska's looking forward to that. Everybody's looking forward to getting the season kicked off. So just want to thank our marketing staff for that, Mills and his staff, all that they've done, and really looking forward to seeing our band, who's been practicing really hard, Betsy McCann and her staff, and then all of our members of our band. We hear them all the time out there practicing, so they're working really hard. And I look forward to seeing everybody on Thursday night. So I'm sure you have a lot of questions. I'll stop talking and leave it open for questions. So go ahead.
In terms of the offense and how things are going to be different under Simon and Harbaugh, how would you kind of describe, in broad strokes, obviously you want to keep things under key for Nebraska, but broad strokes, how do you feel like it's shifting?
Yeah, I think that, when we talk about our offense, right, I think it started with everybody saying, well, it must be different. You have to assume it's going to be different. There's a different play caller. We still have our same philosophical beliefs, and that will never change. I believe in how you win football games. You've got to be able to control the ball. You got to take care of the ball. You still have to be able to run the football. You got to play great defense. You got to be able to win situational football. I mean, I've said that for years, right? And you emphasize, you really get what you emphasize. And those are things, you've been to our practices, we hit home constantly. So, again, when you look at the whole picture of it, you go back to 2019 with 2 first-team all Big Ten wide receivers. For the first time in the history of the Big Ten, we still threw the ball 38% of the time with 2 first-team all Big Ten wide receivers. It's the execution of the offense. And I think that's what, and the efficiency of the offense, that's what we want to be able to see with what we do and how we do it. There's different people out there with different strengths, but that doesn't mean the system changes. There's a reason you hire from within to keep that system very similar. But again, everybody has their own DNA and personality, and they're going to put that within the philosophical beliefs of the offense.
When you're seeing a scheme this week that traditionally uses a lot of D-line movement and blitzing,
it creates a lot of issues. We were just up there as an offensive staff talking, and what they do in the 3-3-5, it creates a lot of issues because you can be in a 3-down front before the snap and a 5-down front when the ball snapped, right? You can do that with double barrel. You can create all types of fronts, 4-down fronts, 5-down fronts. You can blitz to it to get to a certain front. You can stunt to get to a certain front. You can create angles constantly. So it's a very complex defense, and without any game film to know exactly how they're going to run it, again, that's what it means by preparing for ghosts. We have a sense, and there's so many ways you can do that, but there's a lot of ways you can do that. Now, which ones are they going to use? How often are they going to use it? What are the tendencies? You can go back to different places that coordinators have been or head coaches have been, but it's still not 100% accurate. If I came from being a wide receiver coach at the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and then we came to Western Michigan as a head coach. And if you would have studied the Tampa Bay Buccaneers offense, you would have been completely wrong, right? Now, we didn't win many games anyway that year, so it really didn't matter what you studied. But that's my point. Sometimes people change wholeheartedly and philosophically as you keep going through, but they're very talented. They're big. They're strong. A lot of guys have played a lot of years for them. They're a very experienced team. And then they've added a lot of players from the transfer portal that have played a lot of football elsewhere. They present a lot of challenges, and like I said, you know that I have a ton of respect for Matt and what he's been able to accomplish in his career, and he always gets the most out of his team no matter what year it is.
PJ, in your 7th year here, in what ways have you changed as a coach when you look back to 2017 when you started?
Well, it kind of goes back to maybe when I first got here, when I said, don't sacrifice what you really want down the road for what you want right now. I think that's easy to say, but it's really hard to go through. I think I trust my staff wholeheartedly. I think you see how college football changes and the role of a head coach changes. And my job is to be the best head football coach I can be and support your staff. And I think there's growth and maturity to that. And, that takes time. And this is the 11th year being a head coach. You learn an awful lot. We talk about you learn a lot on the way to 500. And because you're never really arriving. You're never there. You're constantly learning. But I think it's just the trust of the staff and really stepping back and looking at what your role is as a head coach over the years of how that role's changed and how you have to keep adapting as a head coach.
Is this about where you thought the program would be 7 years in?
Well, I mean, no matter what I say, we'll poke holes in that piece of it because I think if we would have won one West title, we'd say, why didn't we win 2? If we would have went to the championship and didn't win it, why didn't we win the championship? I think where we're at, we've gotten the most out of every single football team we've been able to coach. And as a coach, you've got to be able to say, okay, did you squeeze all the juice from the orange? Did you exhaust every option? Because every team's different. Injury status throughout the year is different. The flow of a game is different. The connection of a team is different. The playmaking ability is different. Teams change throughout the course of the year too. Can you adapt to that? But we've averaged close to 10 wins a year over the last 3 full seasons. I mean, that hasn't happened in 120 plus years here. But to say that that's what we set out to do something that hasn't been done in 120 years, we came here to win championships. We came here to build something that hasn't been built here for a very long time. We came here to bring cultural sustainability to a program. And we came here to make sure that when we coach our student athletes, it's the life experience. Academically, our academic progress hasn't been higher, right? And that's what we came here to do. Socially, our guys are, for the most part, doing all the right things off the field and working to do the right things off the field. They're not perfect, but they're working to do that. They're a great member to society. They're creating change around them. And then spiritually, believing in something bigger than yourself, not religion, but believing in something bigger than yourself. So many of our guys create their own charities and just do so much community service. And then we've won on the field. And again, I don't get to judge that. You know, the one thing about a head coach, you can say whatever you want about your program. You're not the one that's truly judging your program, whether we're having success or not. You're a piece of that. The administration's a piece of that. We just come to work every day, hopefully get the most out of our kids in every area of their life. And that's what I was hired to do, you know. And but, of course, on the field, you want to win at the highest level. And this is why this schedule produces the most opportunistic schedule in the country. Is it challenging? Yes. Do I ignore that? No. Is it tough? Yes. Is it hard? Yes. I get all that piece. But I'm in charge of putting it in young people's minds of how to go attack this thing. And we've looked at it for a long time about an opportunistic schedule, and they know what that means. That does not mean, that's just, that's a good word. They know how hard that's going to be. And they've trained since January for it, which doesn't promise you anything, but it gives you a better chance. And if we can keep stacking chances on top of each other, then we got a better chance.
You've been through the fall and through the August practices and then the spring practices. How do you evaluate the field goal extra point situation where you are there?
Yeah, I mean, we can evaluate that, Dave, all we want. I think we're going to find that out during game day, right? That's the one position, too, that it's kind of like a long snapper, right, in the specialist category. You really kind of only know when it doesn't go through the uprights or when the ball goes over the punter's head. I'm really, really pleased with where we are with the special teams unit. Not just Dragan Kesic as our kicker. I think he's grown leaps and bounds. He's got a huge leg, and you all see that during the kickoff part, but he's made himself into a really good, solid, reliable kicker. And now he just got to go out there and prove it to himself. He's exactly who he says he is, and I don't think he has any problem with that if you know who he is and you know his personality. And you watch camp with Kesic, I think you know exactly who he is and the confidence he has, and he's a football player kicking. That's what I love about him. Same thing with Mark Crawford. Crawford's 30 years old. You talk about a mature person being able to handle that role. His parents are actually here for about 3 weeks right now, and they've never been here before. So I'm really excited about what he's been able to do and how he's been able to get better. You know, a 0.2% hang time's a massive difference in change from a punter. Not only that, 4 yards deeper's a huge difference for a punter, and he's been able to, to reach those feats in the offseason. I really like our return game. I really like our, obviously Brady Weeks, our long snapper, has been really reliable. But when you look at like the punt team, the kickoff return team, punt return team, I mean, I like where we're at with the big four, we call them. So a lot of people contributing, a lot of depth in those areas, a lot of young players that are going to find themselves a way to get on the field through those units. But I love what Coach Wenger's been able to do. It's taken a while to create that depth on special teams. And, so right now we feel like we're in a good place, but we'll find that out when we get the games.
I want to go back to you said having to adapt as a coach. When you took this job, there was no portal, there was no NIL.
Yeah.
Do you still worry about the same things that you worried about, that you had to worry about when you took over? Have you had to change how you are as a coach?
Well, I think you always have to keep changing, and you have to. This goes back to what we were talking about earlier. I don't think you necessarily change; you adapt. You are who you are, there's no wholesale change in how we run a program or how we run an offense or how we run a defense or what we truly believe in morally and ethically and all the things we believe in on the field, off the field, academically, athletically, socially, spiritually, mentally, physically, emotionally. Those things stay the same, but it's how you adapt to that. There's way more on a head coach's plate and a staff's plate, not just the head coach, everybody, our operations staff, our recruiting staff, our general manager, everybody has way more on their plate than they ever have. So it's changing, or it's adapting to those changes that are made, but not truly changing who you are, but it is adapting. There are more things that pull you away from a true coaching football role as a head coach than there's ever been. And there's more time to spend on all the other things from the transfer portal to the NIL to the fundraising than there's ever been. And so again, I mean, if you don't adapt, you're going to have a problem. And I think that for us, we've had to adapt in a lot of different areas that maybe hadn't existed here before. But the game has changed. 7 years to go back to where we were and to look at where we are now. Yes, to answer your question, of course you have more worries. You have more challenges. There's a lot more to worry about. That doesn't mean I don't worry about the same things I worried about 7 years ago. There's just 20 more things to worry about, right? And but that's part of the role. That's college football. The head coach is the GM, the president, the owner, the head coach, the fundraiser, and the marketing team. You're part of all of that in college. It's not the National Football League, but we're just keeping adding more to that plate. Which our administration's done a great job of adding some roles that have helped us too, that maybe we didn't have 7 years ago when we got here, that have helped us keep moving in the right direction as a program.
Coach, you've talked about constant improvement. Talk about a few players, starters or otherwise, who have made great strides just even in fall practices.
Yeah, I mean, the constant improvement, I think, is sometimes people look at that and have a misconception of that. That doesn't always mean that the line just goes like this. There's a lot of times you got to take some steps back to go forward, but you got to go through them. I think back to year one at Western Michigan and we had to go like 10 steps back just to go one step forward, but it's worth it, and you can't cut those corners. So for us, I mean, we always constantly look at that line of success. We always talk about changing our best. You look at guys like, Jalen Logan-Redding is, I think, going to be one of the better players in the league come the end of the year when you look at it. And that kid has done a ton for us, but it's taken him a while to get there. He started on the scout team. Look at Brevin Spanford. He was a 2018 or 19 scout team player of the year. Muhammad Ibrahim was a 2018-19 scout team player of the year. It's the process of growth in a developmental program.
So that'll wrap up our Monday press conference coverage, but we have plenty more coming your way on Tuesday, same time, 1 Eastern, 12 Central. You will hear from these four head coaches. James Franklin as Penn State gets set to take on West Virginia. Ryan Day and Ohio State will face Indiana. You'll also hear from Michael Locksley and Greg Schiano as the Scarlet Knights play Northwestern coming up on Sunday.